for entrusting their children to us. My staff is excited to embrace all of our students from different communities. Just seeing the kids' smiles and excitement. Some were a bit anxious, but once they stepped on campus, it seemed like they felt at home.
Today I'm starting 4th grade, 5th grade, cuarto grado. We're going into 7th grade. 7th grade. I'm starting 1st grade. I'm a senior.
I'm a junior.
Going into my freshman year, sophomore year.
Starting senior year.
Definitely start getting the routine, go to bed earlier, start reading again to them, and we appreciate your commitment.
My mom woke me up so early to do this. I'm like, why?
It's pretty nice to be back in school, I guess.
I feel nervous, excited. Starting middle school feels stressful. Yes. I'm very excited.
We teach all students and believe in all students. Enjoyed welcoming the parents and just looking forward to another school year.
Yeah.
Today went by really fast.
My first day was amazing.
I'm ready to go home.
I'm out.
So today we're at the County Office of Education for Computer Science Community Summit, and I'm super excited about it because more often than not, when you see computer science events, they're geared towards students or teachers. But really, we wanted to empower our families and our communities.
As a county, we really want to help districts raise the visibility of computer science education. We'd like to see more courses offered at high schools and middle schools as well.
It's extremely important for students to learn coding and computer science because those are the jobs of right now and the future.
Computer science touches all facets of their life, so it's really important that they learn about the opportunities across the community, with our partner organizations that are available to all of our students.
We have partners from Cal Baptist, University of Redlands, UCR, a few volunteers from RCC. We have VMware sponsoring esports, so they're showing people what esports is, how to get involved, and the different opportunities and careers that are involved in esports, because it's not just playing video games like many people think. We also have Lego Robotics here today, and they partner with First Robotics, and they do robotics competitions throughout the state and throughout the nation. We also have PyTop here, and they're doing a lot of physical computing along with the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which is a nonprofit that's all about getting more computer science in the hands of students all around the world.
And so that is helping adults to create spaces for kids to explore
floor coding. So from coding like online with Scratch and Python to actual physical computing.
So we've got tons of students and parents and family members and teachers and administrators here to sort of experience some different things going on in computer science.
I really like participating in events like these, like community events that get kids excited about engineering specifically. These events are really great for demystifying like what computer science is and what engineering is.
It drives me to create something that is greater than myself and be a part of something that's greater than myself, and also to teach others.
We really want to make sure that our students are able to grab a seat at the table and share their voice, share their perspectives. So it's very important for us to be intentional to provide learning opportunities for all of our students, and especially our underrepresented students.
It's our first time doing it, so we didn't totally know what to expect, but we're really excited about how it's going.
Today, we are honoring a community member and former trustee of the Board of Education for Riverside by naming our library after her, Mrs. Gail Cloud.
Well, it's pretty exciting. It's kind of a little bit of vindication because at the beginning, not everybody was real excited about what was going on at Bryant.
Gail was really instrumental in getting the core knowledge program started at Bryant, which absolutely turned the school around. It was failing in terms of its population. We were losing population. They were talking about closing it down, and Gail had this idea that she wanted to provide a quality program for our students.
She just, always put the students first, and she was thinking long term in terms of the curriculum, like core knowledge, and what an incredible asset it is to our community.
She was determined to bring to a neighborhood school a program, core knowledge, that really makes it thrive and makes it live. So I think that that's legitimate to say that it might not be thriving without Gail Cloud.
Gail is a fixture in this community, and she's known for her support of public education, helping the underserved, and especially literacy.
We named a library after Gail Cloud because she's been an extraordinary public servant and advocate for public education, our students, for 16 years as a school board member.
I served with her for 12 years on the school board, and during that time I was able to see her dedication and her interests and all the expertise she brought to the board, and I know that this library is really where her heart is.
Boy, it's appropriate because I did almost major in library science.
Gail Cloud is one of the finest people I've met in Riverside, and just greatly cares about this community and K-12 education and just overall where Riverside's going.
Being able to name a library after her, especially one that her kids and grandkids go to, there couldn't be a more perfect recognition for her.
Chorus line is one of my favorites, and I know the students are going to love it.
And it is about the story of an audition for a chorus line and what every dancer has ever gone through and the passion that they have to go through this.
I play Cassie. I get to do a dance solo. I get to have the stage to myself at one point.
My role, I'm Richie Walters. I'm a former college basketball player who for some reason no longer plays basketball, so now he dances.
My character is Christine, and she can't sing, so I feel like it's perfect for me.
I'm one of the people on the chorus line. I play Bobby.
I am a cut dancer, so in the beginning and the end I dance.
We did, I believe, 3 days of auditions where they came and sang for us, and then we did it, the third day was dancing, so we could see how well they moved, as this is a heavy dance show.
Yeah, a lot of dance numbers. It took a lot, but we all got it down, and it's really good.
I haven't really taken any dance classes, and I have the dance lead, so it was very nerve-wracking, going through the whole process.
I wasn't very good at dancing, but our choreographer Hannah really taught us a lot of really good technique.
They were a little rough, but I'm able to see you can move, you can dance, I can work with it, I can make it work.
She really taught me almost everything that I know, and I call her my dance mom.
Hannah, she helped so much. I wasn't really confident in dancing, and now I know my numbers like the back of my hand.
We just really just kill and drill everything. So they feel like they're going crazy, but in the end, it shows that the hard work that they put in.
And we're giving them an experience that they can't get necessarily in their own schools. We're giving them quality, high caliber theater experience.
They're so excited about doing it here at the Fox, and we can't say how much we appreciate the Fox Foundation and Live Nation for giving us this opportunity. They're just going to be spectacular.
That and the crew, the kids that we bring in for the crew.
There's less people doing lights and then sound, and then we have the people turning the periactoids in the back, and then I'm doing dressing and stuff backstage. It's really cool.
And the fact that we can bring all of our district together to perform a chorus line is really amazing.
Oh, it's so much fun. I've like all the friends I've made and like everything, and I'm so glad I have other people from other schools too.
Oh, it was amazing. I never thought that I could do all these things until I went and was able to do it.
Today is our Project Lead the Way STEM Expo, where our students are showcasing the different modules they've been utilizing all throughout the school year.
The rubber band is for the chain, and it actually moves like this.
Biomimicry. Mimicry means copy something else.
We're making new like pulleys and out of these types of energy.
And the bee goes to each flower to get the pollen, and when it goes to different flower, it spreads the pollen.
It's amazing. So in the current module, there are hands-on where they do it, in a variety of ways.
Our students are able to articulate their learning to adults and to each other and really problem solve.
Because it's having fun and we can do different activities by learning. We're trying to build a car.
It's a radio module, which is also on the robot. And they have to be the same chip. If they're not the same, they cannot be controlled.
It's important because so the bee can have food, and then when it drops, then it creates seeds.
Everything is controlled by the mind.
Our current module right now, we're doing animated storytelling. So in this module, students are learning about programming.
It's very open to people who are creative, and it's just really fun in general to do.
And they are learning a lot about how to keep persistent, how to fix problems. True scientists always go back and analyze what they did and evaluate how they can make it better.
It was kind of like a creative science, like a resilient science, like never to give up. Like if you like break it on accident, you should never give up.
And that's what we need in the world. There's students who can problem solve and children who grow up to solve problems that we currently face.
Thank you for entrusting your children to us. My staff is excited to embrace all of our students from different communities. Just seeing the kids' smiles and excitement. Some were a bit anxious, but once they stepped on campus, it seemed like they felt at home.
Today I'm starting 4th grade, 5th grade,
Cuarto grado.
We're going into 7th grade.
7th grade. I'm starting 1st grade.
I'm a senior.
I'm a junior. Going into my freshman year, sophomore year.
Starting senior year.
Definitely start getting the routine, go to bed earlier, start reading again to them, and we appreciate your commitment.
My mom woke me up so early to do this. I'm like, why?
It's pretty nice to be back in school, I guess.
I feel nervous, excited.
Starting middle school feels stressful.
Yes.
I'm very excited.
We teach all students and believe in all students. enjoyed welcoming the parents and just looking forward to another school year.
Today went by really fast.
My first day was amazing.
I'm ready to go home.
I'm out.
So today we're at the County Office of Education for Computer Science Community Summit, and I'm super excited about it because more often than not, when you see computer science events, they're geared towards students or teachers. But really, we wanted to empower our families and our communities.
As a county, we really want to help districts raise the visibility of computer science education. We'd like to see more courses offered at high schools and middle schools as well.
It's extremely important for students to learn coding and computer science because those are the jobs of right now and the future.
Computer science touches all facets of their life, so it's really important that they learn about the opportunities across the community, with our partner organizations that are available to all of our students.
We have partners from Cal Baptist, University of Redlands, UCR, a few volunteers from RCC. We have VMware sponsoring esports, so they're showing people what esports is, how to get involved, and the different opportunities and careers that are involved in esports, because it's not just playing video games like many people think. We also have Lego Robotics here today, and they partner with First Robotics, and they do robotics competitions throughout the state and throughout the nation. We also have PyTop here, and they're doing a lot of physical computing along with the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which is a nonprofit that's all about getting more computer science in the hands of students all around the world.
So that is helping adults to create spaces for kids to explore coding. So from coding like online with Scratch and Python to actual physical computing.
So we've got tons of students and parents and family members and teachers and administrators here to sort of experience some different things going on in computer science.
I really like participating in events like these, like community events that get kids excited about engineering specifically. These events are really great for demystifying like what computer science is and what engineering is.
It drives me to create something that is greater than myself and be a part of something that's greater than myself, and also to teach others.
We really want to make sure that our students are able to grab a seat at the table and share their voice, share their perspective.
Okay, good evening. We are reconvening the Board of Education meeting at 5:46 p.m. And I would like to report out that the board in closed session authorized by unanimous vote of all of its members the initiation of litigation, and the action, defendants, and other particulars shall, once formally commenced, be disclosed to any person upon inquiry, except as otherwise provided under Government Code Section 54957.1A2. And I'm pleased to share that we have some CTE students here that are doing job shadowing with our communications team. We have Angelica Huerta from Poly High School's media production class. Where is she? Oh, right back there. And we have Ryan Gobalt also from Poly High School. Ryan, okay, thank you. And we will now have the Navy Junior Reserves Officer Training Corps from Martin Luther King High School will present colors tonight under the instruction of Mr. Julius Messias. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Seth Neal, a 6th grade student from Hawthorne Elementary School.
Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to ROTC from King High School, and thank you to Seth for leading us in the pledge. The principal at Hawthorne is Carrie Brown, and we'll actually have our we'll have our trustee, the clerk of the board, Tom Hunt, present our Seth with a certificate.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk, and members of the board and distinguished guests here tonight and our audience. I'd like to introduce to you, you've met him a little bit, but this is Seth Neal. He's representing our community tonight and leading us in the pledge. Seth is a 6th grader in Miss Harris's class and at Hawthorne Elementary. Seth loves math, history, reading, and participating in classroom collaborative discussions. That's great. Way to go, Seth. At school, you might find Seth playing soccer, being creative, or helping out where he can. Thank you for that. He is currently running for student leadership, where he hopes to grow his natural leadership skills. I think he's got them. And outside of school, Seth enjoys playing flag football and helping his mom at her dance studio. You'll need to give us, you're going to introduce her in a minute, aren't you, Seth? Just a minute. Seth has a smile, there we go, that might light up the room, and the Hawthorne community is proud and excited to see what his future holds. Seth, I have something for you, but would you like to bring up your folks and other guests you might have to introduce them to us?
Well, I would like to introduce my mom, Callie Rich Neal. My dad, Jay Neal. My principal, Carrie Brown. My vice principal, Miss Summers. Thank you.
What's the name of your mom's dance studio? Okay, give her a plug. Go ahead.
JoJo's Dance.
Huh?
JoJo's Dance.
All right, JoJo's Dance. Right. And we have a certificate, so let's get a picture. Dr. Fruit, we do it here? Should we come up with you? And I'll have the board. Okay, all right. So Seth, what's on your, oh, President. Fruit, Dr. Fruit, you gotta get one of these shirts. Mom, Dad, come on.
Thank you, Seth, and thank you, Trustee Hunt, for presenting that certificate. Our group performance this evening will be provided by John W. North High School Ballet Folklórico Ensemble under the direction of Miss Victoria Bella.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Ayala, Director of Ballet Folklórico Xochitl of John W. North High School, and we are excited to be here to perform and celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. North Ballet Folklórico Group gives students the opportunity to explore, connect with the beautiful culture tradition of folklórico dance. What makes this club unique is the fact that our advisor works tirelessly to create the wonderful costumes needed to perform these dances. Without her support, many students would not be able to participate in this tradition due to the expense of purchasing their own costume. This year alone, we have performed at the LA County Fair, the League of United Latin American Citizens' first annual Hispanic Heritage Dinner, and the Tamal Festival. Here to perform the region of Sinaloa. Please give them a big round of applause.
Thank you again to the John W. North School Ballet Folklórico Ensemble. We are now going to proceed to our student high school representative reports, beginning with Zachary Ross from Arlington High School. Welcome, Zachary.
Hi, thanks for having me. So good evening, Dr. Hanson, Dr. Froke, and the rest of the members of the board. I am Zachary Ross, ASB president, school site council member, and varsity tennis team captain at Arlington High School. And I'm the representative from Arlington High School that's going to be representing our school. And I'm incredibly honored with this opportunity to share with all of you a few of the exciting things Arlington High School has been doing since the beginning of the school year. So as the board may know, Arlington High School introduced office hours last year, and since then, we have adjusted a few things. We changed the date from Thursdays to Wednesdays, and we increased the time to 53 minutes. This allows students to further their academics intervention while also increasing enrichment opportunities. I, for example, benefit from office hours because I'm taking a hybrid online class. So because of this, I often struggle to come in after school because of all the activities I'm involved in. So office hours allows me to come in for tutoring and take tests during this section of the day.
I want to thank her.
Then our guidance office is also utilizing office hours for seniors workshops for UCs and Cal States, while also offering workshops for FAFSA. After that, the second week of school, Arlington's ASB put on the Lion Pride Rally. So this rally welcomes students back into the school year, while also introducing the students to new staff on the campus. The main goal of this rally was to restore the roar and encourage students to get involved and participate in School Plus 2 clubs, programs we had, and we recognized the clubs. It was during our Lion Pride rally that we showed our lip sync video to Don't Stop Me Now. It was a teacher lip sync video that has kind of went viral a little bit, and it was the highlight of the rally for many students. So, and then most recently, Arlington was proud once again to have parent-teacher conferences instead of the traditional back-to-school night. At this event, parents had the opportunity to meet one-on-one with their student teacher to discuss their child's progress so far in the school year. Parents even had the opportunity to meet with PTSA, their students' counselors, and complete a needs assessment survey. An afternoon session and an evening session was offered to accommodate the parent schedule. And that's all Arlington has done so far this year. Thank you for having me, and I am excited to continue presenting for the board.
Thank you, Zachary. Our next student representative is Hannah Thompson from Martin Luther King High School. Welcome, Hannah.
Good afternoon, President Farouk, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. My name is Hannah Thompson, and I'm honored to be the student representative from Martin Luther King High School. King High is proud to carry RUSD's equity initiatives. Our high school has reestablished the Multicultural Council, modeled after North High School's class. The Multicultural Council is a leadership course that focuses on diversity and inclusivity among King students. They analyze the experience and determine ways to improve the culture of our campus through education, advocacy, and student-led activities. Martin Luther King High has also established a committee made up of students, teachers, classified faculty, and administration. The Excellence Through Equity Committee works to identify the needs of the school through the equity lens. This committee will be working together on tasks that ensure that all students have a quality experience at King High School. We're excited for this group to continue to work together and provide a long-term positive effect on our campus. I'm also pleased to report that the culture of King High has always been filled with school spirit and great participation. We take pride in our execution of creating a climate in which students can get involved and be recognized with the support of the district and School Plus 2 program. To further this point, our homecoming festivities filled 2 weeks with engaging activities and events for the King Wolves, one of which being our black light themed dance attended by over 1,500 King students. This theme this year was the Sound of the 60s, which was graciously accepted and celebrated by not only the student body, but the staff as well. Followed by the King versus Poly football game, a week of spirit dress-up days, and culminating in the crowning of the homecoming King and Queen. Congratulations to this year's King and Queen, Sean Coburn and Malia Maroka. On the week of October 16th, administration at Martin Luther King High is excited to put on our second annual College and Career Fair. Each grade will have a class-specific event on Wednesday, as well as dress-up days and engaging tasks for incentives throughout the week. Our freshmen will select sessions to attend regarding time management and tips to academic success, as well as hearing a message from motivational speaker Jeremy Anderson. Sophomores will be required to take the PSAT, while seniors and juniors have the option of taking the PSAT or SAT respectively, the ASVAB, or selecting sessions to attend at the College and Career Conference. As you can see, we're off to a great start this year, and I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to presenting to you next time.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Hannah? Trustee Alavi actually has a question for you.
I just wanted to ask you, I'm looking at your passport to college career kickups.
Yes.
What is the popcorn activity?
The popcorn activity.
Do you know?
I don't know.
Oh, that's okay. You can find out and let me know.
It should say on there if you were to open it. I think if you open it, inside it should tell you about it.
It does say popcorn into your future. But
popcorn into your future. You know, our admin created that, and
That's
it's one of
okay.
the many activities. I
That's
don't know what
okay.
it is, but it's there.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Hannah. Our next student representative is Alfredo Renteria from Abraham Lincoln High School. Welcome, Alfredo.
Hi, thank you. Hello and good evening, Board President Dr. Farouk, Dr. Hansen, and esteemed members of the board. My name is Alfredo Renteria, and I am here on behalf of Lincoln High School to bring you some updates on what is happening at our school. In our transportation pathway, we have a new auto shop for student training. Students are getting the opportunity to work on vehicles using current technology and equipment, such as vehicle hoist, a tire changer, wheel balancer, and brake lathes. Students are earning certifications from Snap-on Tools and National Coalition of Certification Centers. They are developing skills needed to work in an automotive industry. Lincoln is also establishing industry and college partnerships to provide our students with internship opportunities as well. In our patient care pathway, students are being prepared for entry-level employment in a hospital or medical center environment. They are receiving an instruction on legal and ethical responsibilities, as well as students will be learning transferable skills related to entry-level health occupation careers and receive CPR training and certification. Students have the opportunity to internship at Eastside Health Clinic and Moreno Valley Healthcare. In our software and systems development pathway, the robotics students are designing and preparing a new robot for the October STEP conference. The robot will have a car theme that includes a robotic arm with a claw. Students are working on their design and practical skills in preparation for the first robotics competition. They will be working on a grappling system for manipulating objects and different strategies for launching and collecting items as well. In the build, students are using computer-assisted drafting. Other skills included in this build are electronics, coding, and fabrication. Thank you for this opportunity. This concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Alfredo. Thank you. Our final student representative is Aubrey Gordon from Riverside Virtual School. Welcome, Aubrey.
Good evening, President, Dr. Farouk, Superintendent, and Dr. Hansen, and board members. My name is Aubrey Gordon, and I am the Educational Options Center student representative for this school year. I am a senior and have attended Riverside Virtual School for the last 4 years. I am a fourth-year student in the International Business Program and hope to earn my business degree in college, and with this, start my business where I will help kids and teens discover and monetize their passions. October is National Bullying Prevention Month, and here at EOC, we are doing as much as we can to spread awareness. To start this month, the students were encouraged to take a survey about their experience with bullying. Through this survey, we can gain more insight into the students' lives and further prevent bullying on our campus. Throughout this month, we will have many activities, including bullying education from the teachers, a student kindness pledge, Unity Day, and Spirit Week. Every year we hold meet and greet. This is our version of back to school night. Last Thursday, about 200 students, staff, families, and community members were able to enjoy the evening together with free games, food, face painting, snow cones, and prizes. The Batmobile even made a special appearance at our superhero-themed event. At EOC, we had over 30 tables with community representatives and school programs. The meet and greet is a warm-hearted environment that gives the parents a chance to see what our school is all about and socialize with a purpose. Going to college is a big part of our school, and because of this, the seniors of EOC were invited to tour RCC. We will be having a university field trip for foster youth in November. I would like to also mention that RVS was awarded the FAFSA Race to Submit Award for the June 30th deadline and is now also a California Distinguished School. Today at EOC was College Kickoff Day. Students were informed and will continue to be informed about college applications, deadlines, FAFSA applications, and more. Speaking of college, our heritage students attended the UCAN 20th Annual Historically Black Colleges Recruitment Fair. One of my main goals for after high school is to attend an HBCU, and through the college fair, I was able to receive full acceptance to 4 different HBCUs. This event
Congratulations.
Thank you. This event truly does show minority students that they can go to college and gives us hope for a bright future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Aubrey, and congratulations again. We appreciate all of your reports for the student representatives, and you're welcome to go do homework or whatever you need to do. Thank you so much for being here. And I also want to mention at this time that our student board member, Deborah, is sick, and that's why she's not here up on the dais with us. So thank you all. Our next section of our agenda is special recognition items, and it will be presented by Dr. Jamie Angulo regarding Western Municipal Water District Education Grant.
Good evening, Dr. Farouk, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. Tonight I have the pleasure of introducing LaSalle DeGrave, the education coordinator for the Western Municipal Water District, who will be recognizing the recipients of the Lois B. Krieger Water Education Grants for 2019-20, as well as providing a brief overview of the grants projects. So, Ms. DeGrave.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Hanson, President Farouk, and members of the board. Since 1995, Western has honored educators in both our retail and wholesale service areas with grant funding through the Lois B. Krieger Grants for Water Education program. The program ensures that water education is taught in our classrooms. Through this funding opportunity and the dedication of teachers like the ones joining us here today, water education will remain a priority for future leaders in Western service area. Before you today, we'll be recognizing the following teachers who were awarded grants for the 2018-2019 school year. Their projects are complete. Today we celebrate their accomplishments, and tomorrow we hope that they apply for a grant for the new school year. The grant application period has again opened, and we do encourage teachers to apply for this year's funding for up to $1,000. The deadline to apply is Friday, November 9th. And at this time, I'd like to invite Director Gracie Torres from Western Municipal Water District, if she'd like to share a few words. Director Torres represents the division within Western Service Area that serves most of the Riverside Unified Schools.
Hello, Superintendent, Board President, Board members. I'm very excited to present these awards today. I'm actually a recipient. When I was in college, I was a recipient of the scholarship, the Louis B. Krieger Scholarship, and so I know firsthand the effects, the positive effects and changes that these types of grants will bring to your students. And so thank you so much for allowing us to participate in your students' education and be part of their teachers' successes in the classroom. So without further ado, here you go.
Our first recipient is Sherry Harris, and I really had to work with this one. She retired last year. I have a feeling you might all be aware already. She's pretty involved. But she got fancy, and she is here today, and we are so thankful to see her. I've had the fortunate experience of working with Sherry, I believe, at least 8 years. With this grant program that started in 1995, we believe she may have been one of our original recipients. It was probably 96, 95. Sadly, that was almost pre-internet, so we don't have the data to prove it, but she really is one of our supporters, and we love what she does in the classroom, and we're so fortunate that she's here today, and really kind of sad that she won't be applying next year, but I heard that she's twisted some arms already at Arlington, and we might have some Yeah, she's working on it. So hopefully we'll get some participation from Arlington again. Our next recipient is Rashandra Truesdell, and I'm not sure if Miss Truesdell is here this evening. Okay, we'll make sure that she gets this. And then our last teacher, Christy Wong. And then if we can get a group photo.
Up here.
Okay, wonderful.
Congratulations again to all three recipients, and we really value the partnership with Western Municipal Water District to support our school district. And thank you, Director Torres, for all your leadership, and being an RUSD alum, you're making us proud. Thank you. We are now proceeding to our district superintendent report, Dr. David Hansen.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Farouk, and good evening, members of the board and public. Just a few things to highlight this evening. I'd like to have our Chief Academic Officer also provide an update. But it is already Thursday, October the 3rd, is the 15th annual Riverside College and Career Fair at the Galleria at Tyler from 4 until 8 p.m. This event will provide over 7,000 high school students and college students a one-stop access to future career and educational opportunities. And so come on by. It's one of the favorite events of the year, and that'll be, again, October the 3rd, this Thursday. And then a couple things excited for our 3 student board members. If the public isn't aware, we have 3 student board members that sit on the dais and are full voting board members, except for when it pertains to staff, and they rotate throughout the year. Where this year, board, just as we have done in the past, they're going to be participating in the California Symposium Association of Student Councils training. Excuse me. That training is taking place up in Sacramento, and they'll be going to participate early morning flight, late evening flight next week. And as well as next week, I'll have a chance to spend time with them visiting schools in our district. They have made it aware that they want to get out and visit elementary, middle, and high school, and so we're going to be doing that. We're going to visit Woodcrest Elementary here at Central Middle School, and then go visit the STEM Academy. And we're grateful for their leadership. We're grateful as they broaden their perspective and horizon as what it is required to represent all 42,000 students in the district. A bright spot is the Rivers and Lands Conservancy Annual Gala is scheduled for Thursday, October the 10th at the Riverside's Art Museum from 5:30 to 8:30. And I'm pleased to announce that our very own Patricia Lock-Dawson is being recognized that evening for her work up and down the state with environmental issues. And so congratulations, Mrs. Lock-Dawson. And then also for your calendars to put on is the 10th annual REEF Citrus Classic is scheduled for Saturday, October the 12th. I will be there. I invite you to come and join me. It's at the Riverside Plaza. It's in front of the Regal Theaters, and it will be between the hours of 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. If you come to the 6 a.m. bike ride. That's the 100-mile ones, and those athletes are amazing women and men. And if you come, I believe it's the 10 o'clock one. It's the family bike ride and things such as that. But it's on the 12th there at the Riverside Plaza. And I'd like to give some time right now to our Chief Academic Officer for a brief update.
Good evening. Thank you. We had a great event for our Family Engagement Summit, which was our 9th annual on September 21st at Poly High School. Many families came out. We had a presentation by our very own Ramona Yee as the keynote speaker. And at the event, we had 20 dynamic workshops led by community agencies, our own social emotional counselors, instructional specialists, and teachers. We also had something specifically for students, and that was from Officer Ryan Tillman, Breaking Barriers United. The day was great, and there were a lot of vendors out. About 50 community resources were offered around lunchtime, so it was a really wonderfully attended event by the end of the day. And I wanted to also make mention, then we're very used to hearing pathways to higher education, but this year we've kind of redefined that into what we are going to call Pathways to College and Career Readiness Conference, and that's going to be taking place October 12th from 7:30 a.m. to 12, and it is for all of our current high school students and their families, and to really learn about the opportunity of financial aid, preparation for college applications, and that pathway to college and career. So that is something we are excited, and please join us for that if as interest. I also want to touch base on the work that Dr. Perez continues to lead around our Equity Task Force, and it convened on September 24th. That is one that we bring community members together as well as district staff members, and they're continuing to inform the equity steering team. And so I just want you to know that that work is continuing to happen. Another thing that's important to us for you to know is that through our local control and accountability plan, we do a lot of outreach in Riverside. In fact, I'm really continue to be impressed with the engagement of our community. And it was recommended by our advisory team that we did something a little bit different this year, and that was to really give the community an opportunity to go into depth for each of the 3 goals that we have. And so we had our first one of those sessions on September 26th for goal number 1. And then we will be doing that again for goal 2 and goal 3. So that's a little bit different than in the past. So that way, when individuals come to the forums, they're more informed about what currently exists and the goals and actions that we're making decisions about. So that was a great idea by our advisory committee. The very last thing that I want to mention, actually there's a 2 other exciting things I wanted to mention was you heard our student rep talk about the UCAN event, and that was attended by 30 historically black colleges, 800 students, and well over $1 million was awarded to our students. So that is something I think that I wanted to go into a little bit more depth with. Coming up, we are going to have what we call Art Bark, and it's that partnership with Riverside Arts Museum's Art Bark in the Park. Kickoff is this Friday, October 4th, from 5 to 7 at White Park. So please join us for that, mostly because of all the students that had an opportunity to put in some Paint That Pup art contest entries. And the last thing is something exciting that's coming up on October 7th through 11th, which is our first time we're doing it, and that is an hour of social innovation. I commend Steve Kong and the Innovation Division because it's going to give our students across the entire district an opportunity to engage in a relevant social community problem, and they're going to be able to pitch that, and that happens in participation with the city's Week of Innovation, and then in April, the top-ranked individuals, and it can be individuals, groups, and we even are inviting families to be part of it. They would be recognized at the city level in April. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hansen. Thank you, Lynn Carmende, for that report. Our next section is public input. We will begin with Maurice Robertson Sr. regarding Title IX. Maurice. Welcome, Maurice. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I formed 2 Toastmasters groups, one in San Bernardino and one in Riverside. So I'm very aware. I used to coach basketball at North High School. I was undefeated in the league in 2 years. I left there and went to Linwood High School, where my 1992 team, 15 young ladies, all graduated from 4-year school and were the amateur champs of California. That team then went to Greece and represented the United States. I say this because I applied for the position of girls basketball coach at North recently. And so, of course, you know, you believe you're the best in the West. And I didn't even get an interview. It concerned me somewhat. So I said, God. And then I found out one of the young ladies that beat Linwood ended up getting a job, and she's a teacher at North. It's an oddity, but that's the way it was. And so I just want to let you know that under Title IX, it doesn't make any difference whether it's a female or not to coach the girls. They have to be qualified as the boys coach. And that's one of the reasons we're getting a lot of lawsuits all across America. And I just want to make sure that we understand, because I'm always supporting North. I had a great run at North. But, you know, certain things happening, you have to just bypass that. But anyway, I saw an article the other day where kids were getting ready to go on a trip, college trip. And they were saying how they needed to get the money. Well, just so happened the other day, I got an email, Dear Coach, we had a wonderful time together, but I need to raise money for Chaffey College women's basketball. Please sign, donate, $75. So I looked at it and I called her up, and she said, oh yeah, that's what they call crowdfunding. That's a new technique to raise money. So maybe we need to have the kids up in North look that up. Crowdfunding. It might help them out to raise their money to go on their trip. So again, like I said, I'm always supporting North. Everybody in my family graduated from North. And I got grandkids going. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Laura O'Rourke regarding STEM.
I'm just a member of the community, taxpaying member of the community, and I live in the UCR area, and because of that, I became aware of the proposal for the new building for STEM. And the price of the STEM project when I first went to the meeting was $64 million. The last I heard is now $70 million, and when and if it gets around to being built, I'm sure it'll be even higher than that. This proposal raised all kinds of questions for me. There are 43,000 students in our RUSD, of which 800 will attend the new STEM Academy. So we are spending $70+ million on 2% of the students. Well, in the 50s and 60s, we did our math that way. Hopefully, Common Core math will come up with the same figure. Building a STEM school with funds on a college campus that the college will own. Why not build a STEM academy on Ramona's campus on property Riverside Unified School District owns that is more centrally located? I have asked the question and not received an answer. Putting high school students on a college campus? What about the high school activities, the band, the debate team, theater, football, drill team? These kids need the fun things that high school is about. You will provide transportation to STEM students, but if an Arlington High School student wants to go to North for the IB program, they need to provide their own transportation. So I went on thinking about all the students at Riverside Unified, and I asked about aptitude testing in middle school so kids have an idea of what career they want to pursue and what classes they might take in high school. I was told there's a program called Career Cruising. I called 9 middle schools. 3 have very active programs. 1 said it's on a website and the students could voluntarily use the program all online. And I'm not sure how many 7th and 8th graders would voluntarily go online and do this program without some guidance. 1 said don't use, barely know about it. 1 said doesn't sound familiar and left a message for the counselor to call me back. That school plus 3 others received messages and never called me back. For the students who have an idea of what they want to pursue a career in, there is CTE program. So if a student wants to be an auto mechanic, they need to go to Lincoln High School for that class called Auto Tech. Well, we used to call it Auto Shop, but I'm sure it's the same thing. And she needs to provide her own transportation. So again, your CTE classes may help a student if they can get there, but 2% of the students, the STEM students, are the ones being provided with transportation. I understand funds are earmarked for certain projects.
Thank you for your
However,
comments.
Measure
Laura,
O is for improving our schools.
Ms. O'Rourke, your time is expired.
I only have like very little.
You can
Can I
provide
please
that.
finish?
You can provide that statement to us. We want
I'm
to.
sorry.
You can provide those written statement to us, but we have to adhere to the policy.
Wow. So like 1 more minute I can't do.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We need to adhere to this policy. You're
Says
welcome
a
to.
lot about this board.
You're welcome to share your comments to us in writing, and we'll follow up. Thank you, Ms. O'Rourke. Thank
So
you.
who do I give them to?
You can give them to Ms. Kakish right there, or board secretary. Thank you. Our next speaker is Anthony Sines regarding Measure O. Welcome, Anthony. You have 3 minutes.
Of course. Thank you, Superintendent Dr. Hanson, Dr. Farouk, and members of the board. I was here to talk. I wouldn't use the word concerns, but I had similar thoughts pertaining to Measure O and the construction of our STEM school in coordination with UCR. And the past few meetings that I've attended here, I've gotten the impression from our community that they view the STEM high school as sort of an elitist institution that will only benefit a small portion of our student population. And I just wanted to, as a full disclosure, as an employee, I work at Arlington High School, but as a community member, I wanted to speak to the value of what this STEM high school could provide beyond the students that it would serve, because I think it's important to look at this issue through the lens of context. When this school is established, its programming, its curriculum are going to be cutting edge. It's going to be the most innovative science, technology, engineering, mathematics coursework available to the students on that site. But those programming opportunities and those curriculums are not going to be limited to those students at that site. The district works collaboratively to support all students with the same opportunities within their ability to do so. And to think that this site is only going to benefit those students is kind of short-sighted. On top of that, what it does is it creates an innovation. It creates something to not only retain students enrolled in this district, it gives us the opportunity to have members, students from other districts see this opportunity and want to transfer and be a part of our district. And for those of you in the audience that are concerned about funding as it pertains to our students, I think it's important to note that enrollment and attendance play a huge part in how your students receive funding at the school site level and at the district level. So I appreciate the community's critical lens when approaching this STEM high school project and the various projects of Measure O, but I would also ask you, if you're going to take this critical lens to all of the projects being presented, that you also look at it constructively and try to understand the benefit that the board and that the district is trying to achieve in funding these projects. It's really important to understand that we're building opportunities for our students, and that your engagement in this is an opportunity for you to learn more about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Letitia Pepper. Welcome, Ms. Pepper. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I had put corruption as my topic for the evening, which relates to what is happening with the Measure O funds, which are being stolen by the board here. Because people did not vote to build new schools. They did not vote to use their tax money to build a high school on UCR. They did not vote to use their money that they intended to go to benefit their children, to benefit people's children, people who are not paying the property tax. The gentleman who just spoke, he says this is going to be cutting edge. But I've already spoken about this topic, and if you read about STEM education, if you're not worried about a vanity project, if you're not worried about paying back the people who put all the money into Measure O, the engineering companies, the architect companies, the construction companies who only make the money they donated back if you build new schools. If you don't look at that and you look at what really works to help all the kids in a school district become interested in STEM and go on to take on majors in STEM in college and even graduate with a major in STEM, this is not the way to do it. Anybody who knows about Malcolm Gladwell, he's a really great author. He's written a lot of great books. He wrote a book called The Tipping Point. He wrote a book called David and Goliath, and I talked about that before, and following that gentleman's little discussion, I think I should bring it up again. What Malcolm Gladwell said about STEM education is this: if you take all the really smart kids, you take 10 from this school and 10 from that school, and you take all the top STEM type of kids from all of your schools, and you put them in one high school for STEM, do you know what you do? You don't get cutting edge education. You get a bunch of smart kids who start to feel stupid because they think they're stupid compared to the other kids, and they drop out. And anybody who doesn't believe that can buy David and Goliath, or you can go online. There's a TED Talk about it and see what he says. What this school district is doing is not to benefit the students in this school district. It's to benefit the people who put up the money to pass Measure O. And those are people like Ron, the architect. The architect, guess who got the contract to build the new high school on UCR's campus? Guess who got it? Somebody who donated a lot of money to make Measure O pass. This is what's called pay to play. It's a scheme where in order to get work that they're going to make millions of dollars from building new schools, they donate the money so the school district can give you all flyers to get you to do what they want, which is to give you the bond money, and then they don't use the money the way the voters were told it would be used. It's bait and switch. That's why I put up these signs. This is bond fraud. If you want to see which schools are going to lose money, that poster will tell you. To take a third of the money that's supposed to go to local schools, they have to take it away from the local schools for the new buildings. If you want to see which schools are not going to get the money, look at that.
Ms. Pepper, your time has expired. Okay. Our next section of the agenda is District Group Reports. Mr. Dan Rudd from CSEA. Mr. Rudd here? Oh, there he is. Welcome, Mr. Rudd.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Hanson, President Farouk, members of the board, and members of the cabinet. CSEA Chapter 506 has been very busy. This next Saturday, we will be joining other chapters at Riverside County Office of Education for our officer elections training, where our fellow members will be trained in the election procedures of nominating, campaigning, and voting for chapter officers, which are going to be beginning at our next chapter meeting on October 18th, and we will finish in December, where we're going to vote for our new chapter officers. Next Saturday, October 12th, CSEA will be having our Maintenance and Operations Academy, where our members will be taught various safety practices, how to de-escalate heated situations, and many other topics to improve their skills for our district. And on October 20th, our chapter will be holding our reclassification training, where we instruct our members on the laws, the rules, and the procedures for reclassification. We are also taking names for our CSEA Para-Educator Conference, which is going to be held in Ontario this year, and it will be at the end of March in 2020. And we have many workshops that will help improve the knowledge and the skills for our paraprofessionals. This conference always fills up. That is why we are starting to take names early, and I want to thank Mace Kakish and Kylie Ibarra for always making it possible for our members to attend and gain skills and abilities to better serve our students in our district. They've gone above and beyond to make sure that we have the trainings that are needed. And thank you, Ms. Ibarra, because she's having very many trainings that are going to be afforded to our members, and we've been talking about that and seeing how we're going to get them trained, because there's so many opportunities, but there's also so many members in our district that the more they learn, the better they serve our children. On a final note, our chapter is having our first online voting this week, where we started yesterday, and the online voting will be open to our members until October 9th. This is the first time that we have been voting this way since our chapter voted. Our chapter voted to go on to online voting, and 2 years ago at our CSEA conference, our chapter brought a resolution on how to change the policy and the rules to online voting, because before we had to do so many things and had to notify each member per mail-in ballot, which would cost over $800 just for us to be able to tell our members that we were voting. So we did a resolution to change that, so now we can use our district email and our personal email to notify instead of the voting, which saves us a great deal of money, and hopefully we'll have a bigger participation. And finally, I would like to thank the board, the cabinet, for their time and the commitment that they have for the staff and the students of RUSD.
Thank you, Mr. Rudd, for that report. Our next speaker is Mary Beth Loyal, the president of Riverside PTA. Welcome, Mary Beth.
Thank you. Good evening, President Dr. Farouk, Superintendent Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Riverside Council PTA. The PTA is the nation's largest and oldest volunteer organization working exclusively on behalf of children and youth. We continue to encourage educators, families, and students to get involved with the work of their local PTA. Advocacy is a PTA focus area of great importance. For over a century, the PTA has been committed to policies that best support education, safety, and well-being for all children. We are excited to again have the opportunity to take a group of students to the California State PTA Legislative Conference, January 12th through 14th in Sacramento. There are 2 upcoming information meetings. The first will be for returning student attendees Thursday, October 3rd from 4 to 5 p.m. at the RUSD Family Resource Center. The next meeting will be for new attendees Thursday, October 24th from 4 to 5 p.m. also at the Resource Center. Both meetings are open to all parents and students in RUSD interested in attending legislative conference. The information meeting, the attendance is required for students to serve as representatives, so they really need to attend these meetings. Last year, 6 of our 8 high schools had student representatives attend the legislative conference, and this year we would like to have all high schools represented. So we're asking that principals and teachers encourage student leaders to attend one of the upcoming meetings for more information. Riverside Council recently had our annual Principal and President's meeting, and it was hosted by Washington Elementary PTA on September 18th. It was a very well-attended event. Happiness Is Now brought us a preview of their school dance-inspired assemblies, and in doing so, principals, presidents, and district administrators were moving in the same direction to get the school year off on the right foot. Having a healthy PTA was also emphasized during this meeting, and the best way to achieve this is through accountability and officer training. Principals are encouraged to take an active role examining their PTA's financial records, and we will be holding another opportunity for officer training October 23rd at Ramona High School. Riverside Council PTA has reached over 60% of our membership goal for the school year. I want to again encourage everyone here tonight to join their local PTA. California State PTA is offering a continuing education scholarship that is available to counselors, teachers, as well as volunteers. And anyone can apply for that. They just need to visit capta.org. The deadline to apply is October 15th. And to close, I want to thank RUSD for extending the invitation to Riverside Council PTA to attend the Equity Through Excellence Conference. The experience was perception changing that has impacted my personal and professional growth. It also served as an opportunity to connect with parent leaders of both DLAC and APAC. Riverside Council appreciates your inclusion of leaders from all parent groups. And I want to also thank Dr. DeAnda and those who presented at the LCAP meeting on September 26th. You beat me to this, Lynn, but it was in my report. I have served on the LCAP committee for 4 years as a representative for Kathy Allavy, and this meeting was quite different. The format was superbly planned to engage all in attendance and provided valuable information as it related to specific LCAP goals. So well done, RUSD. Just one last note, we are looking for a school site to host Founders Day. For any principals here tonight that are interested, please let us know. That is February 19th. And our next meeting will be October 16th at Riverside STEM Academy. The district science department team has been invited, as well as CTE, to present information on the newly adopted curriculum and standards. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mary Beth, for that report. Our next speaker, I'm proud to share, will be Mariela Fernandez. This is the first time DLAC was actually being part of these reports, and so we appreciate you speaking here. And I also want to add that due to translation, that there'll be 10 minutes for you. So thank you, Ms. Fernandez.
Okay. Buenas tardes. Muchísimas gracias por la oportunidad.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Al Dr. Angelo Farú,
Dr. Angelo Farouk,
al Dr. Hanson,
and Dr. Hanson,
y muy especialmente al Dr. Ryan,
and especially for Dr. Ryan,
porque nos escuchó cuando vimos
because he listened to us when
que no
he noticed
no había como una equidad de la comunidad,
because there wasn't an equity in the community,
porque yo vi a Adriana Curiel aquí,
because I saw Adriana Curiel here
el año pasado,
last year,
y yo decía, ¿por qué el DLAC no está aquí?
and I thought, why is DLAC not here?
Pero enseguida se lo comenté al Dr. Ryan,
And I mentioned this to Dr. Ryan,
y hizo esto posible.
and he made this possible.
Hay que agradecer las cosas.
We have to thank.
Así que
give thanks
muchísimas
for
gracias
things.
a todo
So
el
thank you
comité,
so much to all the committee,
porque las cosas tienen que cambiar.
because things have to change.
Y este es el inicio.
And this is the beginning.
Y por eso estamos trabajando en la equidad.
And that's why we are working on equity.
Y quiero agradecerle a la doctora Jacqueline Pérez
And I want to thank Dr. Jacqueline Perez
por permitirme estar en ese comité.
for permitting me or allowing me to be in this committee.
Me apasiona de corazón ese tema.
This is such a passion for me.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Ok, la presentación.
The
Ok, quiero
presentation.
presentar a María Elena García.
I would like to introduce María Elena Garcia.
Ella es la vicepresidenta
She
del
is
DILAC.
the
A la señora Patricia Oropesa.
Vice President of DLAC, and Ms. Patricia Oropesa.
Ok, y agradecida a la señora Esther que está con nosotros y a la doctora G.
And thanking Ms. Esther and Dr. Yi
por la participación.
for their participation.
Ok. Nuestra primera... ¿A dónde le doy? Aquí. Ok. Ok. ¿Aquí?
Sí.
Ok. Ok, queremos presentarle el porcentaje,
We would like to present the percentages
los indicadores de asistencia,
of attendance
que para nosotros es muy bajo.
that for us it's very low.
Ya lo hemos hablado con el Dr. Hanson,
We have spoken about this with Dr.
quien
Hansen,
amablemente nos está atendiendo una vez al mes.
who is very kindly meeting with us once a month.
Y podemos observar que en el 2018,
And we can see that in 2018,
cuando nosotros recibimos este comité,
when we received this committee,
la asistencia llegaba de 30 a 40 padres.
the attendance was between 30 and 40 parents.
Pero lo que más me preocupaba era la asistencia de los administradores y principales de las escuelas.
What mostly worries me is the attendance of school principals and school representatives.
Que a veces llegó a ser hasta de 2 personas.
That sometimes it was only two people.
Pero empezó a incrementarse
But it started increasing,
y hoy estamos hasta 20 personas.
and now we have up to 20.
Quiere decir que la información
This-
se está llevando a las escuelas.
This is, what this means is that the information is reaching the schools.
La comunicación tiene que mejorar.
Communication has to get better.
Okay. Nosotros, las representantes del DILAC,
Us, the representatives of DLAC,
empezamos a asistir como iniciativa propia
started attending by our own accord,
a diferentes escuelas
started going to different schools
para entender qué está pasando.
to understand what's going on.
¿Por qué no hay suficiente participación?
Why isn't there enough participation?
Y pudimos observar,
And we were able to see,
primero, que hay muy baja participación de los padres en los comités ILAC.
first, that there's very low participation, parent participation in the ELEC committees.
Exacto. Y muy poca convocatoria al comité DILAC.
And very little asking them to participate in the DLEC.
Con esto no buscamos culpa, solamente mejorar el proceso.
And with this, we're not blaming anybody. We just want to better the process.
Porque para eso trabajamos para la comunidad.
Because that's why we are working for the community.
Ok. Ahora, estos son los requerimientos que le hemos hecho y hemos recibido de
And
parte del distrito.
these are the requests we have made to the district and we have received.
Cuidado de niños.
Child care,
Entrenamientos.
trainings,
Reunión del DILAC en la mañana y en la tarde.
DLEC meeting during the morning and evening.
De una vez los invito, mañana es nuestra segunda reunión.
And I would like to invite you, tomorrow is our second meeting.
En la Ramona a las 8:30.
At Ramona at 8 a.m.
Empieza nuestra media hora social.
That's our social time.
Y oficialmente empieza a las 9.
And it officially starts at 9 a.m.
Y nuestra reunión de la tarde es en la North.
And our evening meeting is at North
a partir de las 6 de la tarde.
At 6 p.m.
Están todos cordialmente
You
invitados.
are all invited.
Gracias, señora Patricia, por haber asistido 2 veces el año pasado.
Thank you, Ms.
Y no estar en agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Patricia.
Es muy valioso.
Thank you, Ms. Patricia, for being there twice last year and not even being in the agenda. Thank
Muchas
you.
gracias.
Thank you.
Okay. Aparte de eso, también solicitamos estar aquí.
And besides that, we asked to be here.
Y lo logramos.
And here we are.
Ahora, ¿cuáles son los temas que le preocupa a la comunidad?
So what are the matters that concern the community?
¿Sigue siendo un problema la asistencia?
Still, attendance is still a problem.
Porque, ¿cómo vamos a estandarizar procesos?
So, because how are we going to standardize the process
si no estamos trabajando unidos?
If we're not working together.
Okay. Otra cosa que le solicitamos al superintendente.
Another thing that we asked from the superintendent.
Y ya fue aprobado.
And it was approved.
Lo cual se lo agradezco.
Which I thank him.
Que llegue a cada padre o a cada representante de cada hijo.
That each parent or each representative from the English learner.
Yes. Una comunicación a su casa.
That they get a communication, something.
Para que sepan que sus hijos pertenecen a este comité.
So to inform it that their children belong to this committee.
Suena a veces interesante decir cómo no lo van a saber.
Sometimes it sounds kind of interesting to ask, or we ask ourselves, how is it that they don't know this?
Pero a veces no lo saben.
But sometimes they don't.
Queremos por todos los medios que estén notificados.
So we want to inform them by all means.
Ahora queremos las metas por alcanzar de este año.
And the goals we would like to achieve this year.
Volvemos otra vez, mayor asistencia de padres y administradores.
Again, we would like to increase the parent and administrators' participation.
En el 2018 se consignó una comunicación.
In 2018, the schools were informed.
¿De cuáles eran las escuelas que tenían ILACs? Porque no todas las tienen.
We asked for what schools had a ELAC, because not all schools have a ELAC.
Hasta la fecha no tenemos información.
And till this point, we still do not know all of them.
Y otra cosa que consideramos muy importante.
Another thing that we consider very important.
Es un representante del distrito.
That we would like a representative from the district.
De educación especial.
From special ed.
Porque en la presentación que nos hicieron a final de el año pasado.
Because the presentation that they gave us at the end of the last school year.
Si no me equivoco, el doctor Angelo Faru estaba.
If I remember correctly, Dr. Farouk was there.
La brecha que nos cuesta más cerrar.
The gap that is harder to close.
Es la de educación especial.
It's from special
y sabemos
education.
que es una brecha difícil.
And we know that this is a hard
pero
gap,
hay que hacer más.
But we have to do more.
Okay. Y mejorar los índices de reclasificación en general.
And then improve the percentages of reclassification for students in general.
Aquí, gracias a la señora Esther. que me apoyó.
Thanks to Ms. Esther that supported me.
Estos son los porcentajes de reclasificación.
These are the percentage of the reclassification.
Y notablemente se puede ver un cambio.
And you can obviously see the change.
Quiere decir que se está haciendo un mejor trabajo.
This means that there's a better job that's being done.
Pero nunca es suficiente.
But it's never enough.
Y podemos hacer más.
And we can do more.
Los logros del comité DILAC
The DLAC committee achievements
es estar aquí,
is being here,
es poder estar en el comité el comité de asesoría de ELCAP,
and being able to be in the LCAP advisory committee,
estar en el consejo asesor de la comunidad del superintendente,
being able to be at the superintendent's community advisory committee,
tener una reunión mensual con él,
have a monthly meeting with him,
porque esto es algo nuevo,
because this is something new.
¿ok? Y agradecida
And I am thankful.
de parte de María Elena, la señora Patricia y mi persona,
We thank everybody from Maria Elena, Patricia, and myself
por invitarnos a CABE,
for inviting us to CABE,
a Somos Uno
to Somos Uno, or We Are One,
y a la conferencia de equidad.
and to the Equity Conference.
Para terminar, quiero decir,
To end, I would like to
apasionada
say,
del tema de la equidad y la igualdad,
I am very passionate about the equity,
temas parecidos pero no iguales.
same kind of themes, but not the same.
Les pido que por favor vuelvan a traer algo,
I ask you to please bring something,
algún proyecto educativo
a educational project
que empodere a la comunidad,
to include the community,
como fue Somos Uno.
like something like Somos
Creo que
Uno.
gracias a Somos Uno estamos aquí.
Thank you. I think that because thanks to Somos Uno, that's why we're
Eso
here.
nos abrió la mente.
That opened up our minds.
Gracias.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you so much for that report. And if you could please share with us, the board, the copy of the presentation for future reference.
Claro, ¿cómo no?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Gracias.
Bye.
The next section of our agenda is our Board of Education Subcommittee reports, beginning with Academic Oversight Board chaired by Trustee Locke Dawson.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. The Academic Oversight Board Subcommittee met on October 1st, and we had a fairly full agenda that we tried to get through, so I'll just summarize it very quickly. One of the issues we discussed was safety and wellness, and the staff talked about the investments we are making on making our campuses more safe and also encouraging wellness in our schools. But campus security was kind of a big part of the discussion, and we talked about the rollout of panic buttons, and we're working with each of our sites to have those done. We also had an update and an upgrade on our district suicide prevention handbook, and we're kind of retooling our suicide assessment process, and that's going on right now. And we also discussed how to manage the bill that was passed regarding the Senate Bill 419, which had some changes around suspensions and willful defiance. So that's going to be something we're going to continue to talk about and how we're going to manage that in our classrooms. We also had a really interesting and engaging discussion regarding our civic engagement and character development, which has been a big priority for the district. We talked about opportunities for students to earn recognition on their high school diplomas for their civic engagement, which we've never done before. So it kind of encourages the kids to get out and get involved in different groups and different issues. We also talked about, I don't remember that there. Oh, we also discussed efforts to hire a social worker to support at-risk homeless and foster youth, and to provide more intensive case management tracking. Let's see. Oh, we had a really good update from Steve Kong regarding our district-wide STEM plan. He talked about the different efforts across the district for STEM and all the different things that are going on in all the campuses. I think you all should have received a copy of that or a link to it. And we also talked about Art to Go and our partnership with Live Nation and the Fox Theater, and how our kids are getting hands-on experiences there. And we are still working on the homework policy. That's something that's ongoing. We have a district committee with parents and teachers and principals and community members. And Dr. Angulo is heading that up, and we will have some recommendations coming forward, I think, after the first of the year. Where's Dr. Angulo? Where'd she go? Is she not here anymore? So I think it's going to come out next year. Is that right, Mrs. Alavi? I think that's what it is. Okay. Anything you would like to add, Mrs. Alavi?
No, but we have 4 meetings scheduled out for the homework committee, so the work is to begin.
It's ongoing. Okay. Other than that, I think that's about it. All right. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Trustee Locke-Dawson. Our next subcommittee report is on operations, chaired by Trustee Brent Lee.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Good evening, everybody. Operations Board Subcommittee met back on September 11th, and Mr. Hunt was unable to attend, so Mrs. Alavi attended in his place. And it was a relatively light agenda. We discussed 3 main topics. The first being the Gage Middle School landscape plan. So if you recall, back in 2017, we did an extensive deferred maintenance project at that site to create some better curb appeal, new irrigation, planters, some hardscape up the front. And if anybody's driven by there, they've probably seen it turn into a palm tree nursery, which was not the intention. But I guess over the years, with the lack of irrigation and the years of palm tree seeds falling, they were buried deep into the ground. And so an unexpected consequence of putting water on that dirt produced all those wonderful palm trees. So unfortunately, they're not like picking weeds because they have a very deep root system. So they are going to have to do some tractor work to remove the palm trees. So that is going to be done with our M&O staff over the next several months. And there is going to be a few changes to the plan because of the issue with the seed. So it'll be more drought tolerant. Still will look very nice. They're going to revise some planter areas with that still have the bioswales designed to capture runoff water. So we're still going to try to be smart with our irrigation. This should start work again this month, and then hopefully finish before the end of the year. Second item that we discussed, which probably doesn't need too much explanation, was the Measure O kickoff event. So just going over the planning for that, and I commend the staff on that event. I think it was well executed, and it was a good celebration for all the work that's starting to progress. And then the last item was an East Side property. There was an opportunity for a piece of property in the East Side community. And so the staff looked at it to see if it had the potential to be used for a future school. And unfortunately, there was just too many points against it to where it just, besides just the size, but proximity to spraying of pesticides, insufficient parking, some traffic congestions, and some zoning. So it was just not compatible for future sites. So those were the 3 items that we discussed. Mrs. Alavi, was there anything else you wanted to add? All right, so that was it for us this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lee. Our next subcommittee report is Finance, which I chair. And I would like to share that regarding the purchasing policy revision, BP 3311, based on recommendations from the September 3rd board meeting, revised language now includes, quote, City of Riverside, including unincorporated areas encompassed by Riverside Unified School District boundaries, at the suggestion of Trustee Hunt, on agenda for today's meeting for the second reading. Also, RUSD CFD number 34, the Special Tax Bond Series 2019. Adam Bauer from Fieldman Rolap presented the plan of financing of that CFD and to pursue the bond sale based on the fact that interest rates are good. More money is flowing into bonds right now. Out of 71 units, 68 have already pulled permits. This item is scheduled on the agenda for November 4th. Regarding an economic impact study, our original proposal was able to be renegotiated at 50% of the original cost. Difference eliminates the subjective area of social impact and stays more with the factual. Staff and consultant working on data to have ready by the State of the District event. And Trustee Alavi, was there anything you would like to add? Okay. Thank you. That concludes the Finance Committee report. Next is Marketing, chaired by Trustee Patricia Lock-Dawson.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. So first we heard, Mr. Lee is on this committee with me, sorry. First we heard an update. We met on September 19th regarding the History Project. Board, if you remember, this was, we talked about trying to capture an oral history of RUSD. And there was a matter of urgency to it before we lost some of the ability to do that. We got an update from Dr. Vince Moses, who's the consultant on this project. And if you recall, this is being paid for out of Measure O proceeds from the fundraising we did for Measure O for the advertisement. So the REEF committee, or the REEF organization donated this back and identified this as a project they would like to see. So Dr. Moses identified a candidate from UCR who is a specialist in oral history videos, and he's going to work with our CTE students and our CTE media program to produce 3 to 4 minute shorts. So we're trying to do it economically and use our own students to get some ability to some real hands-on. Our consultant on October 7th will come back to let us know the results of our report on focus group studies that were completed last month regarding our attendance and rebranding for attendance. So we're going to get that at our next subcommittee meeting. We'll have some findings and that'll come back to you. Don't forget, State of the District, October 24th. We talked about that. We also talked about school logos. Nick over there has been slowly but surely going through all of our school logos and trying to sort of standardize them, but keep their own unique identity. So he's been doing a good job about that. So has new logos for the Science and Engineering Fair. We're not going to see them. Are we not going to see them tonight? I don't think so. You want to send them out? Science and Engineering Fair, Inspire Her Mind, and our dual language immersion program. So we've got some cool new logos for those. Tomorrow, I believe staff is presenting to the Inland Valley Association of Realtors. So we heard about what that program would be like. We're going to be kind of showcasing all the wonderful things about our USD, our CTE, our dual language immersion programs, our core knowledge, talk about transfer protocol and process and our housing needs and our homelessness data. So thank you, staff. I'll be eager to hear how that goes. Are you attending, Mr. Lee? Are you going to that? And Dr. Farouk, are you going to be there? Great. And I think that's it. We had no new or old business. Mr. Lee, would you like to add anything to any of that? All right. Any questions from the board on any of that? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lock-Dawson. Our next section of our agenda is the consent calendar. We can entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Alvey, seconded by Trustee Hunt. Please vote. Okay, the motion carries. Our next agenda item is under the action section. We're going to be approving a resolution, considering approval for a resolution 20-15. And I would like to introduce Dr. Ryan Lewis.
What about
A point of order, yeah. Do we want to do board member comments?
Oh, my apologies. I thought I passed over the consent calendar. Okay, sorry about that. We'll move to board member comments, beginning with Trustee Lock-Dawson.
All right, thank you. Just real quick, I did want to thank everybody for the Measure O kickoff event. I thought you did a fabulous job, and I can see you back there. Thank you. It was a lot of hard work, I know, so I appreciate that. It was really cool to go to all the sites and see all the improvements that are going on at our various locations, and just some of the old schools that we have that are really in desperate need of improvement. So that was kind of cool to see. Just a couple things. One is we talked about the REEF bike ride, but there's also Santa Ana River Trail Family Fun Ride on October 5th, and it's free. So I just wanted to invite everybody to that. It's a kind of a big deal. It'll be from 8 to 12, and you can access it at Hidden Valley Wildlife Area and Ryan Bonamidio Park, so that's kind of cool. And then tomorrow is Grow Riverside, right, I think, and we're partners in that as well, our nutritional services. So I don't know if anybody's planning on going to the dinner, but there's a dinner and conference and some tours. And I think that's a really wonderful example of our partnership with the city and also our partners in business community and our farming and nutrition services. So love that. I think it's in its 4th year now. So, and then also I just wanted to ask, just with the DLAC report, Dr. Hansen, I hope, and I know staff, I know we've been working on trying to improve attendance at that, but I just really would like to maybe get a report back from staff on maybe some other kinds of steps we can take to try to get more of our folks involved in DLAC, if that's possible. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Dr. Austin. Trustee Hunt?
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Just a few things. One is so nice that Western Municipal Water District Gracie Torres, Director, was here tonight. I had the opportunity recently, and I'm asking Dr. Hansen to have his staff and CTE in particular follow up. Director Torres is very interested in working with us on, there are certificate programs in water and wastewater quality analyst positions that can be done in high school, and there's jobs begging for this across the nation for wastewater. So I would hope we can get together and look at that and see if it's viable for our CTE, and she's the one that offered, and we really appreciate that about Gracie and all. I'm pleased and just want to tell the audience that the board has sent on behalf of the district a letter to Governor Newsom in opposition of the early start time bill that would change the start of the school day from whatever it is now to a mandatory 8:30 in the morning. I think some of the studies are very interesting, and I was one of those teenagers that wasn't awake till about 10, but it's still, I think the bill is, and we think the bill is very one-sided, doesn't consider what the community is going through. In a community like Riverside that has so many parents that travel to their jobs and all, this would be very difficult. So I hope the governor, as Governor Brown did, will declare that is a decision best made on the local level. I'd like to just say this weekend was sort of a special one for me and my classmates of a long time ago at high school, because this was the 50th anniversary of the founding of La Sierra High School, and along with some other folks, I got to be in that first group. We were 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. And the reason I bring it up, it was such a wonderful and kind of unexpected feeling, but one of the things that I came away with was the board of trustees at Alvord at the time, even though the oldest class there were 14-year-old kids, they named the school, but they allowed the students to, through a voting process and presentations and all of that, to pick the colors, to pick the mascot, to design the letter and the ring, and Leslie Kirtley and her sister wrote the fight song, and Mr. Jacobs wrote the alma mater, and all of those things were so important to us old folks when we were up there, and I was amazed we all remembered the fight song. And what it hit me with is what we do here as school board members and our district leadership will have a ripple effect decades from now. I experienced one this weekend, and I commend whoever that board was and Mr. Conlon, our principal at the time, allowing kids to have that sort of leeway and ownership, and that was important. And so I just want to share that with you. We also got to, y'all know how I feel about coaches, and we got to take our coach, Roger Folsom, the great Polly Bear, out on the field. He was an honorary captain for the game, and it was really just beautiful. Not just our kids at La Sierra, but the opposing team came over, and they knew who he was because they'd been told in advance, and were very kind. And I was very impressed with these young people and their coaches. Lastly, I don't mean to complain, Dr. Hansen and Ms. Kakish, but As an employee of the district, I enjoy the health plan benefits and put into that. And lately, I've been inundated, and at first I thought it was, well, somebody's out for a school board member, but I've had now 6 collection notices from LabCorp. And none of them did I get a bill before. And so thankfully, I went by and saw Rita Smith at our benefits program, and Rita said, "You're not alone. Here, give it to me. I'll work on it." And last night, when I got in from the event at UCR, there was another one waiting for us, demanding collection within 10 days of $65 if they're going to take me to collection agency. And it was for 2 doctor visits for my wife, neither doctor she's ever heard of. And on those dates, she didn't go to the doctor. So now that I'm satisfied it wasn't just being targeted as a school board member, I know it's happening to everyone else, and that's what Rita shared. And I hope that you will work with Lucent and everyone else we've contracted with to try to get this worked out with LabCorp. And other than that, I'm just fine. But thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Farouk.
Thank you, Trustee Hunt. Trustee Brentley.
Nothing for me this evening.
Thank you. Trustee Kathy Alvey.
Thank you. A couple of things. First, I had the chance to do a calibration walk at Arlington High School. And I have to say that I was really impressed because we get to follow our professional growth system people around and go into a classroom and try to see what they're seeing when they're evaluating. Mr. Lee and I were there. And it was very educational for me because I got to really see where the PGS is going to take us in regards to evaluation and teacher training and mentoring. And I was very impressed. And I'm very impressed that our district does this, that we're, as far as I know, right now, the only district in California. There may be some trying to do this, but we're doing it. Very impressed with the PGS system, and thank you so much, Antonio, for all your work. I want to give you a little report from the CTC. As you all know, I am your representative on the CTC, the school board representative. We have come up with a CTE study committee, which is tasked with ways to coming up with streamlining getting CTE instructors into the classroom. And I will tell you that we've got a committee that's not going to get to this very easily because there's an impasse with regards to CTE instructors wanting a streamlined pathway. In other words, something that's sort of gets them into the classroom faster, and you've got CTA that would prefer that everybody go through a more traditional teaching pathway. And so it doesn't look real good yet, but they're still meeting, so we'll see where that takes us. We discussed new directions for teaching programs in general with an emphasis moving away from teaching as one teacher in a room with a closed door to complete team model teachings. And I can tell you that seems to be the wave of the future. And that was, at least from the CTC's point of view, that was the way to go. We moved forward on new credentialing for theater and dance credentials. And in the future, English teachers will not be teaching theater as they have been allowed to do so now unless they get a theater credential on top of their English credential. But anyone who currently is teaching theater with an English credential will be grandfathered in, and they'll be allowed to continue to do so. We discussed the outlook for the teacher shortage and the good news and bad news. And the good news is that there have been more teachers gaining their credentials every year for the last 5 years in a row. But the bad news is that we are still thousands of teachers fewer than we were before the recession. So we have not caught up to the level of teacher training that we had at that point. Good news and bad news about our teacher pool. More people of Hispanic background are becoming teachers with the goal to have a more representative teaching force in our state. But the bad news is that they are still only about 27% of the teaching force compared to 68% of white Caucasian candidates, with the rest being Asian, African American, and so forth. So you can see that even though we are making strides, we're still out of balance as far as our state demographics go, but we are making progress, and that's a good thing. And my final comment, and thank you, Ms. Carmen Day, for mentioning my Art Bark. Art Bark in the Park is this Friday, big art show. But what I really wanted to tell you is, with regard to our art contest, we opened it up for RUSD. All students, would they like to do a piece of art and create a dog, any dog, could be a dog out of their imagination or a dog that they knew. And we had over 600 entries. I've never had an art contest get 600 entries. I was so excited. So anyway, the winners are outstanding, and they're going to be on display Friday night. I hope you will come and you will see our art students' works. They're really pretty amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Alavi. And for my comments, I wanted to bring attention to the tragedy in Moreno Valley with the bullying incident that I know a lot of us have been following. And I know that our district is very proactive in looking at creating an environment that addresses bullying. But I think incidences like that, are, close to home, for us to really dig deeper and closely monitor what kinds of best practices that districts like Moreno Valley are now looking at and others, so that we can be proactive in preventing those kinds of tragedies happening here in Riverside. The LA Times had an article today regarding vaping and how in some school districts it's really becoming an epidemic, and many school districts again are being very reactive in response to the impact that's having on our youth. And so I shared that with Dr. Hansen, and I just again want to encourage our district to be vigilant on protecting our students with those issues. And then lastly, I just want to commend DLAC and in particular Mariela Fernandez for her leadership. I know that we're making strides, but we still have a lot more to aspire to, and so I really appreciate the leadership there and all the engagement. So thank you. That's my report. We are now going to go to the public hearing, and I want to introduce Dr. Ryan Lewis.
Thank you, President Farouk, Dr. Hansen, members of the board. As a condition of receiving instructional material funds under California Education Code 60119, Riverside Unified School District must hold a public hearing within the first 8 weeks of school and determine through a resolution whether every student has sufficient and appropriate textbooks and instructional materials in the areas of mathematics, science, history, social science, foreign language, English language arts, and English language development.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:21 p.m. and ask any members of the public who wish to address the board concerning the public hearing to please complete a public input card. Trustee Hunt, have we received any?
Dr. Farouk, we have not.
Okay. We will close the public hearing at 7:22 p.m. and we will now proceed to the action portion of our agenda. And Dr. Lewis, do you want to lead us with that?
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve Resolution 2019-20-15, Pupil Textbook and Instructional Materials Compliance for fiscal year 2019-2020, which indicates we are in compliance and have sufficient textbooks for this academic year.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. We'll entertain a motion. Yes, Trustee Hunt.
Just for the record out here, Dr. Lewis, thank you.
Yes, sir.
The fiscal impact is $4.8 million. So how is that arrived at in that? I mean, we're sufficient, but how are we? Is this adoption? And would you just explain for the public record?
So there are multiple ways. Adoption is one, different funds that we use. We use replacement of textbooks, new courses of a textbook, and replacement of other textbooks. You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll entertain a motion. I
I'll
can't
second.
see the screen, but Trustee Alavi?
I was just going to make the motion to approve Resolution 2019-20-15.
Thank you. And seconded by Trustee Hunt. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. We'll now shift to item M2 regarding the MOU with the REEF Foundation, presented by Ms. Kikish. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Farouk, Dr. Hansen, members of the board. This item is before you as a notice to give to our foundation, REEF. It's related to the agreement that we had entered into back in 2018. And as we went through the year trying to implement the agreement, it was clear that our visions are different with regards to that foundation, and we mutually kind of agreed to end the agreement. So before you is a notice that would officially make that agreement. It's a notice to REEF to stop that agreement between us. So we've already given them a notice. We've sent a letter as a heads up from Dr. Hansen, and we also encourage the group, their board members on REEF, to continue the support to our district. We as district and staff will continue to support their events, hence the Citrus Classic. Both Dr. Hansen and I will be attending that morning and encouraging all of our staff to participate. It's just one example of things that we do as partnership with REEF, and what this does is bring us back to that level of support, which is the previous relationship that we've had. And so that's the notice before you, and it's the action.
Thank you, Ms. Kakish. Before the board deliberates on this, we have a public input on this. Ms. Letitia Pepper. Welcome, Ms. Pepper. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. The reason this is happening, folks, the reason there's an MOU with REEF between RUSD and REEF is that Superintendent Hansen and Trustee Brent Lee strong-armed a nonprofit foundation, the Riverside Educational Enhancement Foundation, into accepting an executive director named Brandy Wiegand, W-I-E-G-A-N-D, that they did not want. They did not need one. They didn't want to pay for one. And they were told by these people that they would use Measure O funds to pay for an executive director they didn't need. And the REEF board knew. They said, well, you can't use Measure O funds for salaries. But they really pushed hard. They threatened the REEF board that if you don't go along with this plan, we will not let you be listed as something that our employees can donate money to through their payroll program. If you don't go along with this program, we won't let you use the name of RUSD. If you don't go along with this program, threat, threat, threat. And finally, the REEF board caved, but they said, we don't want to pay for this. So RUSD paid for an executive director that RUSD hired for a nonprofit foundation, which is quite illegal. Why did they do that? Because the person they hired, and you can bet they didn't advertise this, was a personal friend of Brent Lee. And she was pregnant, and she got maternity leave paid for by RUSD, and she never raised much money at all. And they're backing out of this deal because I told Brent Lee, we know about Brandy. We who are bird-dogging how they're being corrupt and misusing money, we know about Brandy. And I sent all the Board of Trustees member an email, and the title says, blah, 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 wake up and smell the brandy. And all of a sudden, they're backing out of the MOU. Does that mean they weren't corrupt? No. They got caught, and they realized it was going to be a problem. So thank you, folks, and talk to the people you know who are on the REEF board, because they'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you now. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now have board discussions. Trustee Locke-Dawson.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. So Ms. Kakish, tell me then how is it going to move forward with what REEF has, how they've operated in the past and what they're still able to do? Are they still going to get the employee deductions and that sort of thing? I mean, how are we working that out?
So for now, we're expecting to go back to the same relationship that we've had before the agreement, which at that time, they've had grants for our teachers that they were donated by staff from our RUSD and other partners, business partners within the community. So that's the same efforts that we would continue to support. And there was a lot of funding through a golf tournament that I know some of our partners are planning on continuing to support that this coming spring or maybe early summer, and any other activities that were there before.
Okay.
We still have the funds for the history project there. We expect to have the partnership to continue that project and deplete the funds that were targeted for that. And so there's a lot of relationship that would have to continue, and the partnership that would continue to support from both sides, the district and the Enrichment Foundation.
And then so they will continue to go on providing money to the classroom for the grants for things like they have. I mean, my kids got grants for some of those things, so
Yeah,
that'll
I think
continue.
they're planning on doing that. I can't
Okay.
speak for the REEF board members or on behalf of the REEF board members, but I think that's their plan, and we can
Okay.
confirm that once we see them next Saturday.
Okay, good. Just checking. All right, thank you.
Trustee Hunt.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Ms. Keech, I'm glad that for those answers. We can continue to support REEF, and they will be still leading on the teacher grants. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Yes,
That's their
okay.
commitment.
Very good. And, you know, I'm going to, the public speaker a moment ago, and I know our attorney's not going to like this, but too bad. I do remember we went through 2 interview processes. The first one, we didn't really find someone that was capable of that. And I believe the REEF people were on the committee that chose the person. So it would be misinformation to say this person was thrust upon REEF. You don't need to answer, I'm saying it. All right? And I have the floor, Ms. Pepper, not you. No, I just, that's not going to be. And I want to say about Ms. Wiggins, since she's been maligned here, I'm not surprised that Mr. Lee might be acquaintance with her, because she's a very sharp young woman. Because I was on the American Heart Association board, where she was a fantastic staff member there, and I know that she even took less to come work with us because she wanted the ability to do more, and she loves education. So what will be happening with Ms. Wiggins now that I mean, no, she's our employee and she's assigned to work on our foundation, which has always been something to the audience listening that has been a disturbing, that we didn't have a stronger foundation. Though I love REEF and the things it's done, the teacher grants, but compared to even Alvord, we're maybe a fourth of the funds being raised. So what now happens with Ms. Wiggins, and how do we plan to utilize her?
So we actually plan to have that discussion with our REEF board, and if there is a transition to follow that, we'll bring that back to the board as information.
Okay, and when does this take place, the severing?
So the agreement has a 30-day notice in a clause for termination, so it'll start the 30-day notice, but we will also work with the REEF board to do whatever kind of transition we need. Even if it's longer than 30 days, we'll be working all these details once this action is taken.
So just share with us, I know that, and I wasn't there, but y'all, I believe it's Dr. Hanson, you, and I don't know who all, but met with the REEF leadership, Ms. Ramirez, being the president, and some others, and you shared these vision miscast together. How is that received, and what are their thoughts on going forward? How's this?
I think we mutually got to this together, that we do have different interests with regards to the REEF Foundation, and so we're just going to have to achieve that in a different way. Whether we go ahead and approach planning for a different foundation that would support the efforts that we were targeting. That would be one option that we would bring back to the board. Option that won't be in competition with our REEF Foundation, again, because we will, for example, teacher grants, we will not be competing for teaching grants. That's one thing that we have already discussed, that we will not be in competition. We have several foundations within our district. We have Alcott Elementary Foundation, we have the STEM Academy Foundation. So there is several foundations that we've already had partnerships with them, and we don't have a competition with them. So whatever we do for future perspective to raise funding for enrichment programs within our district, we'll make sure that it doesn't compete with REEF, and it would support other services that are supplemental to everything else that we do in the district. That would be options that we bring back to you in the future, and it will be in collaboration.
Okay, so we'll still be collaborating with REEF because of and allowing them to use the rooms and that sort of thing for the teacher grants. Those are very important.
That's absolutely, so far, that's the intention. And for example, we've always supported them with the printing of the Citrus Classic and all of that. That's taking place right now, and our staff will also be attending.
Yeah. Well, I can't, at least this board member, I can't deny that I'm disappointed that this has happened. I know that when he was our president, Mr. Lee, and our superintendent worked very diligently on this, that we would collaborate and we would build the foundation, and I know we made the requirements for the executive director, Ms. Wiggins, to have all those sort of certifications on fundraising and all. So I was hoping for the best, but I understand they have their own way of doing things, and they've done it for such a long time, been very successful, and perhaps we just didn't, and they didn't, because we worked on this collaboratively, didn't realize that going in. But I do want us to continue to support REEF in the way we have before this. And it's always been with the different fundraisers they have, and of course the deductions, and allowing them to utilize rooms. And this auditorium is where they usually do the grants and all. So thank you, and I appreciate your work on this, Makikish. I know it hasn't been easy, but we'll move forward, both REEF and a future foundation for our district, which is so important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Hunt. Trustee Alvey.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that REEF's a great organization. They've done so much over the years and fundraising and so forth. And I don't think it was wrong of our two organizations to come together to think that we might build a better mousetrap. I happen to have sat in on the interviews, and I know that there was a mutual desire on everybody's part to make this work. But sometimes the best conceived ideas just don't, and it's no fault of REEF's and it's no fault of ours. It just was just not supposed to be. But I just want to convey that REEF is a great organization. They'll continue to do wonderful things in the community, and we're going to be supporting them all the way.
Thank you, Trustee Alvey, and I also want to echo just the great goodwill that REEF has built in the community and for the teacher grants. It's really appreciate everything that they do, and we hope they continue to provide positive impact here in our district. Ms. Kakish, did you want to say something?
I do want to add one thing just to go on record, that not one penny from Measure O was ever spent on the position. The position was collaborative, and I know all the board members on REEF know that we don't spend Measure O on administrators' salaries. And Brandy was an executive director, which means management. We don't spend on salaries, period, not alone management. So just so we can go on record that general fund has supported that position.
Thank you, Ms. Kakish. We can entertain a motion. I can't see the stream of Trustee Alavi.
Sorry about that. I'm going to make the motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding.
The termination of
the termination of the MOU between REEF and RUSD.
Was that Trustee Hunt? Did you? Okay. Second by Trustee Hunt. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. Our next agenda item is regarding the MOU between RUSD and the County of Riverside, presented by Ms. Lynn Carmende.
Good evening, Board President Dr. Farouk, Dr. Hansen, esteemed board members. I have the opportunity to make a recommendation on behalf of Riverside Unified School District to approve the Memorandum of Understanding that will ensure that the Workforce Development Career Services are adequately provided to students and families who are part of our district. This Memorandum of Understanding formalizes an opportunity for us to provide job referrals, have career fairs, and job placement for students and families, and we're tapping into that workforce development opportunity. I also want to thank Dr. Farouk for having connections to be able to have this dialogue and bring this opportunity to our district as well. We are currently partnering through Career Technical Education, that would be Ron Weston, and we're looking for developing a pathway into these kinds of internships that might look like pre-apprenticeship, which is, as you know, one of your priorities for our students in the district. So I just wanted to make note of that, and we recommend approval.
Thank you, Ms. Carmende. I just want to also acknowledge the great work by Ron Weston, you, Ms. Carmende, and Donna Schulte. I don't know if she's still here. for all of their efforts on this. And then also, I don't know if it was mentioned, but I think the inclusion of having access to timely labor market data to help inform our CTEs on which types of career pathways that we should be investing in that lead to livable wages and social mobility is of particular value as well. Just wanted to add that. Is there we can entertain a motion?
Dr. Farouk, I'd almost yield to you because you had so much to do with this. If you'd like to make the motion, I'll second it because I appreciate all you've done with the workforce and your dedication and the time given to that. So I'll make the motion, but if you'd like to, I'll be glad to give it to you.
Sure. Thank you, Trustee Hunt. I'll motion for approval of the MOU.
And I'll second your motion, sir.
Thank you, Trustee Hunt. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. Our next agenda item is regarding the potential opposition to Senate Bill 328, presented by Ms. Meskikish.
We have prepared a few slides. As Mr. Hutton.
Actually, sorry.
Okay.
I just realized it's the prior agenda item. Is it regarding policy 3311 bids on pre-qualification criteria?
I'm ready to do either one.
We'll do them in that sequence.
So this is a second reading for a revision that we are recommending to the board for policy 3311 for bids in particular, and had came up as a discussion to try to encourage local contractors within Riverside and Riverside area. And so it was brought to you the last board meeting, and there was a suggestion to try to enhance the language to make sure that we include the unincorporated area of Riverside. And so it's coming back to you with that revision. And so the language is, the language that was proposed last time was in the red that was striked, and the new language is below that. The pre-qualification uniform system will include criteria that will offer additional points to contractors located within the city of Riverside, including the unincorporated areas encompassed by the Riverside Unified School District boundaries. And so I think that's for visual, but I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kakish. And as I mentioned in the committee report earlier, we appreciate Trustee Hunt's suggestions to being more encompassing to accurately reflect our district boundaries. We can entertain a motion. Motion by Trustee Hunt, seconded by Trustee Alvey. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. Ms. Kakish, now regarding Senate Bill 328.
So with regarding to this Senate bill that was proposed, and the legislators, both houses, have actually moved it forward for approval. So it's currently sitting at the desk of the governor, and he had up to October 13th to make a decision whether to sign that bill or into law or veto the bill. So what we wanted to go over some of the information with regarding to this bill. But what it does is it proposes a new start time that's mandated for local school districts for high school students, 9 through 12, and for the middle school students. And it proposes that to start in 2022, July 1st for that school year. So it's 8 a.m. for the high school and 8 a.m. for the middle school and 8:30 for the high school. And there's a lot of different studies that are taking place and have been an argument for and against this bill. There's a lot of studies that says extra sleep for students at that age benefits their academics. And there's also some studies that became inconclusive. So what we, as a district, what we're trying to do is encourage Governor Newsom to keep that decision locally. If it's what's best for Riverside Unified School District, high schoolers and middle schoolers, we would do that locally if we choose to and not make it a mandate. The reason being is every district will have to go through different studies to see how it's going to impact the school district depending on the resources that they have and depending on the transportation program that they have. We have done our best throughout the years to make sure that we're efficient with transportation. We've changed start time in our schools to make sure that we have that ability to do so. And so we believe that this will impose hardship on too many families. It will be disproportionate share of burden as far as landing on students whose socioeconomic status is already a significant educational barrier. And that is because if we would to just mandate that they don't start till 8:30 and our schools really cannot receive them, we would have to adjust all of the timelines for the staff accordingly, and they can't receive them early enough. And many of those families go to work a lot earlier than that, and it is the commuter towns that we are surrounded by. It also could increase childcare. It also gives no flexibility to schedules that accommodate school start time, as I mentioned earlier. And the research that went along with it, I just wanted to have an opportunity to know that many of the research that was used to support that bill was inconclusive. And again, transportation, as a district, we're already underfunded. We don't receive any funding really except from the year 1981. And that is like maybe 1 million or 1.2 million for a program that's around $16 million operation. So for a 5-year plan that we just signed a contract for $90 million for transportation. So I'll open it up for questions. By the way, the letter that Mr. Hunt has mentioned earlier has been hand-delivered to the governor's office, and hopefully, because we were there just a couple of weeks ago, that he would actually take it in consideration as he makes his decision. And we will be sending this resolution along to his office also.
Thank you, Ms. Kakish. Trustee Tom Hunt.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. I just want to ask, just on the record, that in our opposition, we are joining the California Teachers Association and the California School Boards Association in opposition to Senate Bill 328.
Yes.
And I personally think this is a typical big government overreach, that it's disappointing that Sacramento would think they can tell Tulare and Riverside to do the same thing when it's different situations in each of those areas, in any area. And it's disappointing that this bill went through. But I do hope the governor, as the governor before him, will make the right decision. And I thank you and Dr. Hansen for your work on this.
Thank you, Trustee Hunt. And I just want to add on a personal note. One is I think those financial implications are very significant in terms of what that happens. But just on a personal note, as someone who was a freelance student growing up, and I can attest to the fact that just because the idea of a later start time does not necessarily mean that those children will get more sleep. Many of our families are commuters, and my mom, when she would go to work, we would wake up regardless at the same time, and she would drop us off at a friend's house, and then we would go to school with them. And so I think with the district with 66% free or reduced lunch, this is not the plight of a niche number of students, this is a plight of many families in our district. And I think these are sometimes these instances of unintended consequences where there's good intentions, but it doesn't necessarily have those kinds of impacts. And so that's just my personal thought. And Trustee Hunt, thank you for bringing this as a suggestion for this agenda item. We can entertain a motion, Trustee Alvey.
I'm going to move to adopt resolution number 201920 in opposition of Senate Bill 328.
Motion by Trustee Alvey, seconded by Trustee Locke-Dawson. Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Okay, our next agenda item is regarding Resolution 2019-20-2 regarding a formation of a CFD number 37, Sergio San Martin.
Good evening, President Farouk, Board of Trustees, Dr. Hansen. The formation of the proposed Community Facilities District 37 was presented to the Operations Board Subcommittee back on June 19, 2019. During that meeting, the committee made recommendations to initiate proceedings and present to the Board of Trustees this evening. The board will consider this evening two resolutions. Resolution number 2019-20-1, which is declaring the intention to establish the proposed CFD, and the second resolution 2920-2, declaring the necessity for the proposed CFD 37. The final proceedings will take place at the November 4th, 2019, which would also include a public hearing. The 90 single-family housing developments located at Wood Road and Lauren Avenue within the high school community, the King High School community. The project developers Coastal Commercial Properties, and the CFD will generate approximately $1.9 million for our USD facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. San Martin. Trustee Hunt.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Assistant Superintendent, what do you project on those 90 homes? Just, I know you had that math in your head, but what kind of student output for you think will, on average, will come out of there? And if, I know it affects Miller, King, and then what would be our elementary school there? I apologize, but I mean, it kind of gets
Yeah,
divided.
it's very, very small. Our student generation factor is under 0.05 of each new home that is developed there.
So 45 kids or so.
About 45 students.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hunt. We can entertain a motion. Motion by Trustee Hunt, seconded by Trustee Locke-Dawson. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. Our next agenda item is regarding recommendation for naming of school facilities at the North Track after Mr. Charles Leathers, presented by Mr. San Martin.
Good evening again. The naming school facilities committee met on June 5th, 2019, and also on July 25th, 2019, to review an application to rename the John W. North High School track and field facility to the Charles Leathers Track and Field Complex. After Mr. Charles Leathers, former North High School special ed teacher and also a varsity track and field coach, Mr. Leathers served at North High School from 1992 through 2007. The committee made some recommendations, which we're bringing to you tonight. One of the recommendations is to install a mural sign on the visitors' concession booth wall area honoring Coach Leathers. This slide here shows you where the track and field is located within the campus, but also where that concession wall is, where that mural sign is being proposed. This is not the mural, but this is an example, just as a graphic to show you how that would look on that wall. The second item was to also add Coach Leathers' name on the football field scoreboard. And again, this is just a representation of where the lettering and panels would be located on the scoreboard. And with that, we can open up for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. San Martin. This naming committee is comprised of Trustee Alavi and Trustee Hunt. Trustee Alavi would like to share some thoughts.
Yes, first of all, let me clarify that the name goes on the track and field scoreboard, not the football scoreboard. I just want to make sure. Okay. So I'm very pleased that we could honor Coach Leathers this way, and I think he has done so much for North and for track and field, and it's something that we can do to honor him in this regard. Mr. Hunt and I walked to the campus, and we think these are the logical places to put the naming of the complex. But as you can see in the suggested recommendation from the committee, we've also recommended freshening up all the other school murals as well at the same time, because it just makes sense to do that. So I would like to encourage the board by making a motion that we approve the recommendation of the naming.
And I just want to add also that I think this is a fantastic honor of a great man, and the impact that he's had in the East Side and North community is really very heartfelt and appreciated, and I think this is a very appropriate way of recognizing that. So thank you both for your service in the committee. Trustee Hunt.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Thank you, Mrs. Alavi. And I just want to be sure that and I want to thank Mrs. Becky Porter out there. Becky of North High School organized a lot of the alums, the JW alums, and including Olympians that had trained under Coach Leathers on that old dirt track that have been there forever. And it's just what he did to advance young people and I see Dale out here and can talk about that as well, that he's really deserving. So I want to be sure, if we could, I want to, working with Ms. Porter, that the North folks have input on how that sign will look. If we can, I think Ms. Hayes could help us if we could use the Olympic rings to let people know that there was a coach and there were Huskies, and there still are, that are quality athletes, and because I want, when the other schools to come there, I want them to recognize that, and I want our young Huskies, when they get there, to know who this man was and what he did. And I never had the honor of meeting him. I coached at North when I was in junior college, and it was after me, but what he was able to do is remarkable in that community. And so I heartily second Mrs. Alvey's motion and encourage our peers to approve this honor for this fine gentleman and educator. Thank you, sir.
Well said, Trustee Hunt, and we definitely think that this opportunity to involve the community is a way of also, again, furthering his legacy and input in that process. So thank you for that. Trustee Lee.
I think Mr. Hunt kind of touched upon this, but I know at the other facilities in recent memory that we've named, they have some information regarding the person that's being honored. And so I'm not sure how you best reflect that, if it's a mural or, I know like we have a little sign there for Mr. Vandersel. But I know there's the wall inside Ramona for Mrs. Frost, and there's a little information about Gail at the library. So I think that's really important too, so that people don't just say, oh, that's neat, but they know the connection. So I know Mrs. Alvey's been involved in that in the past, so hopefully that she'll be continuing that involvement.
Thank you for sharing that, Trustee Lee. And so we have a motion from Trustee Alvey and second by Trustee Hunt. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Our next agenda item is with Mr. Timothy Walker regarding District of Choice.
Do we have it up? Dr. Frug, Superintendent Hanson, members of the board. Tonight before you is a resolution and a small presentation in regard to the District of Choice. As you know, we're a district of choices, with District of Choice being one of those choices available, which allows students from outside of our district to come into our district without the need to be released by their district. So we have inter-district transfers as well as the District of Choice transfers that allow students to come into our programs. There's a little data here for you. We've been through this before. Starting in 2010, it allowed us to start to bring students into our district. We've been a District of Choice for quite some time now. We've actually gone through the sunsetting and the reinstallation of it at the state level. District of Choice is not a school of choice. Students that come into our district are provided with an opportunity to request a school, but we assign those schools to them. It requires that we accept everyone who applies. So it's not based on their level of performance or special needs. Anyone who applies, if it's within the numbers that we are identifying, we bring them into our district. And it has, excuse me, it has assisted in the past with our declining enrollment and continues to do so. The number of kids coming into our district outweighs the number of students that are leaving. It also, as you will recall, helped to facilitate the launch of some of our specialty programs. A little bit of comparison numbers for you. Starting way back in 11-12, just 161 kids. Last year and into this year, we have 573 students who are on a District of Choice transfer.
Mr. Walker, if you could go back to that slide, what do you attribute the spike between the last year and this school year to jump 140 students?
Well, this is cumulative for for the whole time in the district. So what you have before you is each year the total number of students on a District of Choice transfer. So those students somewhere along the line between 562 in 17 and 18, there was a drop off. Where we do see a drop is when students are transitioning between age groups. more often than not middle school to high school, and those students may return to their home district for district of choice for their school of residence, or they may choose to do some other option at the high school level. But otherwise, we've had pretty steady attendance in regard to the elementary and the middle school kids. You can see it spiked up this year too, with the number similar to the year before last.
All right, Trustee Hunt.
Will you be covering what the fiscal impact is, or?
No, I won't be covering a fiscal impact. This is basically just numbers at this point in time. I'm not doing an enrollment review at this point. Maybe
Well, Mrs. Alvey and I were here in 2012 when we decided to do this under Dr. Miller's leadership and advice, and that was part of it was to ensure that, to really gain the market before another district did it. So what does those 500 students, what does that equate to in ADA income to our district that otherwise wouldn't be there?
Well, my understanding is for every 100 students that comes in, it generates $1 million. So if we have 500 kids, we're generating, at that last 572, we're generating $5,700,000 with those students coming in.
And our much like many districts, everyone I've talked to, Alvord included the other day, we're in declining enrollment, so this helps offset that.
Yes, at one point in time, excuse me, at one point in time, it actually erased our declining enrollment because we were going down in a small amount, and the number of kids that were coming in outweighed the number that were going out and that we were losing, so it actually stabilized us for about 4 years.
Okay.
Our decline's a little greater at this point in time.
Thank you.
What I'm asking for as an action tonight is that the DOC application recommendation is for a total of 750 spots at 3 different levels, the elementary, middle, and high school. And obviously the spots are available for people to apply to as new enrollees into RUSD for the 2021 school year starting November 1st through January the 10th. This gives you just a quick overview. I'm not going to go through this, but just about, that for years we've been working on pulling back the enrollment time for our district to coincide with other districts in the surrounding area so that we are competitive in trying to allow students to come into our district if that's their wish. And almost all of our timelines now have gone back to November 1st. In this case, all of them on the board before you. And then there's just one specialty program that needs a little bit more time to get through their process. A couple of ending dates are a little bit different, but all of them start November 1st, 2019 for the 2021 school year. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Trustee Alvey.
I remember when we first started the choice program, it was almost controversial. I just wondered if all of our neighboring districts are also all choice school districts too, and whether or not at this point that edge that we might have had is kind of gone, because if everybody's choice, then
Everybody is not choice. There
Okay.
are a few choice districts around us, but the number of choice districts in the state has been pretty steady. For those who went for it back in that time of 2010, 2011. So we're just competing with a couple of the bigger districts in our surrounding area. All of the smaller districts have not gone the route of district of choice.
thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Dawson.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Mr. Walker, last year I remember the legislation was up for renewal for reestablishing district of choice, and obviously was approved again. What's the sunset date again out for
The
the current one?
sunset date is 2 years from now.
Okay.
And we are working with other districts to make our wishes known that district of choice is something that we support and that we will continue to advocate for at the state level, and working with our local legislators to continue to afford us the opportunity to provide for programs within our districts for any student who would like to attend.
And that there were some other districts that were opposed to it, I know, and but you've got a cadre of districts that have kind of unified around the issue, right? That are advocating for it.
As those who are joining together to promote the continuation of district of choice, there are those who are looking to do away with district of choice. They're losing students from their districts at a larger rate. And although there are some stopgap opportunities, depending on the fiscal stability of the district, where they can stop the number of district of choice students from leaving and allow the rest that have already left to stay in the district of choice, not many districts have ever reached that level. So yes, they're gathering together to try to do away at the sunset point with the district of choice legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Hanson would like to add something.
If I can just interject a little bit, Trustee Lock-Dawson. Riverside is, Mr. Walker said, one of the very few district of choice. And where there's contention is out in the San Gabriel Valley, Pomona, Azusa, Glendora, Walnut. And up and down the state, Riverside and the county is being held up as the model district. And so Tim has represented us in testifying before groups in Sacramento about how we are working this out and how we're doing it here. And we continually are invited to come in and speak because there's lawsuits, there's all those kind of things to that part where it's very contentious. And so Riverside is a model district, and I just wanted you to know that because that contention has not happened in our area, even though we're one of the very few district choices.
Thank you, Dr. Hanson. Trustee Hunt?
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Assistant Superintendent, just going back to your slide here we have here, or your the transfer windows, and it talks about the different programs. You know, I'm supportive of this because I see it as a business move you have to make. I mean, it's important, and that $5 million allows us to keep classrooms filled and teachers and custodians employed. But I've always been concerned, and I know even before District of Choice, that the IB program at North grew and attracted people from out of our district. But I've called you before and asked about getting somebody into King who wanted to go in the engineering program, and they might be going to another high school. I want to be sure and help me understand that a RUSD student, family resident, is not coming in second in line to one of our district of choice transfers in from wherever they come in from.
No, they are not. Actually, the process for our approval of specific schools through the transfer process starts with our intra-district transfers, meaning that students who reside within the boundaries of the Riverside Unified School District can apply to our specialty programs or any other school that they would like to, unless they're already on a transfer to another school. So the rule of thumb is you don't transfer from a transfer. So if you'd like to go to a different school than your school of residence, you apply for a transfer. When you get there, you get to stay at that school for as long as it serves the grade level that it's functioned for. So kindergarten through 6th grade at the elementary level, middle school will serve the 7, 8, and then 9 through 12 at the high schools. If you go to a middle school, it doesn't mean you'll go to the feeder high school. You can apply for a transfer to go to a high school on an intra, or then you go back to your school of residence. So the process is very specifically clear for people when they get in it. It's on their paperwork, and we tell them and talk to them in advance that just because you get into school X for elementary doesn't mean you go through that series of middle and high schools served by that elementary school. There is a process. Second to that, we deal with district of choice after that, because our district of choice has assisted us along the way, and then our inter-district transfers, which are open transfers from outside the district who want to come in and are released from their schools of residence and districts of residence and approved by us to come into our schools for RUSD. They then have to apply on a yearly basis to be released and to come in. So we support them in asking them to apply for a district of choice transfer their second year so that they don't have to go through that process.
And just add to that, isn't there a sibling component to that too?
Within RUSD, if you have a sibling that is coming up through the system, or you have a student who is a sibling of yours and you're coming from another school district, then yes, they get priority, but they don't get immediate placement. All transfers are based on space availability, and high interest schools that may be impacted, you might have to wait, but we will get your two students together because we don't want you to have to travel to two different schools. So that process does allow for some opportunity. That is not necessarily in place for the specialty programs and the specialty school. So,
But again, the specialty schools like the core knowledge or, pardon me? DLI, thank you, Doctor. Those, I'm not going to pick on Moreno Valley just because they're over the hill there. And I think a large amount of our transfers are Moreno Valley and Alvord, just geographically, I would think.
within the Inland Empire is our largest number of students, yes.
But a young qualified person wanting to get into, a parent wants to get their child at kindergarten at dual immersion at Washington, they're not going to be put in front of a Riverside resident's child that wants to be in that program as well.
No, sir.
Right? All right. And that goes for STEM or IB or any of
The
those.
STEM, as you know, as a board, you have approved a certain percentage of students from outside the district. We started with 10%. I think we're down to 5% at this point in time. So they would get in because we're doing a lottery system for a very specific number of students at the 5th grade level.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your answers.
Trustee Dawson.
I just wanted to share, just to Mr. Hunt's comment, I had a couple parent friends who were interested in getting their girls into RUSD, and they're out of the district. I know I talked to Mr. Walker about this already, but they really wanted one of our high schools that is really impacted, and but they were given a placement at Ramona, and there were two of them, and they were a little hesitant. They didn't know anything about Ramona, and they went and they toured the school. They were over the moon. They thought it was fantastic. The girls are both there now, and they're like, it's the best kept secret, and you know that Ramona's so good. So I want to. I think I saw Victor out there. Is Victor? There he is. So I know they are so happy to be there and they love the program. So I do think when folks do call up and they think they've been denied their first choice or something, or that they need to look at what other wonderful programs we have here in our USD. So thank you. I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. And I just want to echo also just with the trends of declining enrollment throughout the state, to have this program and like you said, $5.7 million over this past year is really valuable. My only question is within the categories of priority, what's the basis of determining the order of admission?
That's a very good question. So let's say it's an intra-district transfers outweigh the number of student spots at a particular school. So school X, I don't want to pick a school out, but school X has 60 spots identified for transfers for next year. And 120 people apply within our school district. We give all the names, not names, but the student ID numbers to the Educational Technology Services. They have a scrambling mechanism software that scrambles them, and we basically do an electronic lottery. They put out all the numbers in random order, and then those first 60 students get spots at that school. The next 60 get their second choice offered to them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walker. We can entertain a motion. Motion by Trustee Locke Dawson, seconded by Trustee Alvey. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
Before we go to reports, we'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Kirsten Frosto, Raul Ayala, and Carolyn Power. Well, please begin, Dr. Lewis.
Good evening again, Dr. Farouk, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. Tonight we bring a presentation to you that is our first of 5. And what our team is going to be doing is highlighting our district priorities and then the action steps within our priorities that we're very excited to bring forward. So what you're going to see this evening is based around civic, character education, and citizenship centered. What our ask tonight is going to be is twofold. One, we are going to highlight a lot of areas that you will see will have needs on our system, and they will be in consideration for the board as we go into LCAP, we go into budget considerations, some areas of focus that we're going to bring as recommendations for your consideration, not for tonight, but at a later point, just as a marker to start thinking about ahead. And number 2, we're going to bring you a report on our actions. So you're going to hear tonight a report on suspensions and our goals. You're going to hear a report on civics and character education and what we're doing. And third, they're going to hear a summary around student engagement and actions we're taking. When we talk about those 3 areas, we look at it from a lens of the portrait of a graduate. So in our guide, we talk about when you leave RUSD, there are certain things that we expect every student to be able to do, and we're going to build our presentation to that this evening. So number 1, what we want students to know, academic standards. When we talk about acting, we talk about what does it look like in the classroom to be a friend, a classmate, a student, somebody on campus, how do we present ourselves? When we talk about thinking, the critical side, the problem-solving side, the interaction part, what does that look like on our campus? And then lastly, when we graduate, we want students to be able to be resilient. We want them to be able to enter the workforce or whatever field that they choose and be able to deal with conflict successfully and move forward as successful RUSD alumni. So you're going to hear this through a frame tonight around multi-tiered systems of support. And that's how the presentation will be set up, and you'll hear much more of what that means in a little while. But what we're going to talk about is, when we talk about behavior, we're going to talk about what that looks like in regards to suspensions. How many of our students have been suspended, and we'll indicate what that marker is. Then we're going to talk about academics. How do we provide students who are extremely successful academically, and how are we supporting students who might struggle in our classroom? And what does that look like from TK to 12? And then lastly, we're going to talk about our support of social emotional learning. When students are having challenges with behavior or any other side of social emotional, how are we supporting them, and what will we continue to do as a system? So you're going to get an overview of a very complex 3 different areas. We'll have plenty of time at the end to take questions and go into any depth that the team would be happy to do for the board at your pleasure at the end. So without ado, I'd like to bring up Ms. Frausto to begin with suspensions.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Lewis, Dr. Farouk, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. It's our pleasure tonight to be speaking on the first action, which is suspension rate. Our target is to reduce the suspension rate for all students by 0.4%. The fall 2018 California dashboard measured the number of TK-12 students who were placed on an out-of-school suspension at least once during the 2017-18 school year. Our RUSD suspension rate is 3.9% of our students suspended at least once. This represents the number of students suspended, not necessarily the number of times a student was suspended, which is an important piece to note. Here we see the estimated change of suspension rate by student group. Compares the 2017-18 comparison of out-of-school suspensions to the 2018-19 out-of-school suspension rates. It's important to note that these are estimated preliminary data points, as Dr. Sosa has mentioned before in previous data presentations. We calculate these based on the same rules that the state provides us, but it doesn't necessarily take into account the inclusion and exclusion of students based on their rules. We are very proud that the preliminary estimated data shows that we've met our target for all students with a reduction of 0.5%. This brings our estimated rate of out-of-school suspensions down to 3.4%. We also have 10 out of 14 of our student groups who showed positive growth. And we have 3 groups with significant decreases. Our Black African American students and students with disabilities show a decrease of 1.9%, and our foster youth show a decrease of 6.2%, which is phenomenal. Here we see what our estimated 2019 California dashboard may show us, and this is by student group, with the maroon showing us the district total and the blue showing us by ethnicity and student group. You've have noticed or made note that these percentages are higher than what was previous. And this is a result of the state changing the indicator to now include in-school as well as out-of-school suspension rates. So remember, 2017-18 only showed out of school. The new measure moving forward will be in-school and out-of-school. This could significantly and will significantly impact the dashboards for not only RUSD, but across the county and across the state. Essentially, this is going to create a new baseline for us. When we think about the 5x5 grid where we normally get the color that's shown on the dashboard, that shows the static in terms of where we are now compared to the change where we were the year before. We anticipate that the state, although we haven't heard quite yet, will be making some adjustments and renorming so that they can recalculate the 2017-18 rates to have in and out of school to compare it.
Kirsten, Trustee Alvey would like to ask you something.
Thank you. I guess we're going to just ask questions during whatever pops up, or would you rather we waited until the end?
If it's timely to the slide, I think you
Okay.
should ask now.
Because of this, have we given any thought or have we spoken about changing the way we're doing our in-school suspensions? Are we going to be doing away with those, or how are we going to handle that?
So when we get to the next slide, we're going to cover that a little bit. We will need to look at refining our practices. Yes, absolutely. Any other questions on the data?
Please proceed, Kirsten.
So while we've made improvements, we still have work to do. We are continuing to work with Dr. Sosa and his team to analyze suspension data, looking at the types of, and actually all discipline data, to look at the types of offenses, as well as the consequences and by student groups and also by sites, so that we can support our site administrators and engage in discussions around alternatives to suspensions, what we otherwise call other means of correction. So those alternatives, some examples might be counseling, could be explicit instruction in behavioral skills, our restorative practices, character education, Saturday school, behavior contracts. So there's a number of ways that we can look at alternatives to that. We are also gathering stakeholders to look at other innovative ways, other innovative alternative ways that we can support students as opposed to an out-of-school or in-school suspension. And that includes reaching out to our neighbors across the county and up and down the state to look at best practices. In addition, we are also preparing for the implementation, as Mrs. Locke-Dawson said earlier, for Senate Bill 419. Currently, the Education Code prohibits suspensions for students in K through 3rd grade for disruption of school activities and willfully defying the authority of school personnel. So beginning on July 1st, 2020, the Senate bill will prohibit suspension for disruption and defiance from kindergarten through 8th grade. So with that, we will absolutely be continuing to engage our sites with how we can support them. So through our work with multi-tiered system of support, we're continuing to look at ways we can transition from reactive to proactive approaches and help schools identify students early and provide supports to intervene quickly, not only in academics, but also in behavior and social emotional. For example, the work that we did with foster youth this last year. In the past, we had reacted to data in looking at providing supports to students once they were suspended. So the suspension in and of itself turned into kind of the red flag that a student needed additional supports, such as possibly counseling, mentoring, ongoing supports throughout. And we realized that this was too late, that we really needed to be looking at shifting those supports proactively so that if a student had a discipline offense, that we were putting those supports in place right away, or even better yet, when students, especially foster youth, are enrolling, that we are meeting with them and their foster families and supports that they have in place and looking at proactive means so that we can prevent suspensions from ever occurring, which was very successful for us. So we'll be looking at ways that we can replicate that to other student groups. We are also continuing our commitment to the implementation of restorative practices, which focuses on building relationships and a sense of community to prevent conflict. Thank you. And through community building circles. Thank you. Right now we have 18 schools that have been trained, and we're in the process of training 6 more. The levels of restorative practices are very similar to our multi-tiered.
Kirsten,
Yeah.
Trustee Lee has a question.
Sorry, just basic question. What are the high schools and middle schools that are currently participating?
I'd have to defer to Mr. Ayala. I don't have the list of schools right in front of me, but we can follow up with that. Okay.
I think Mr. Ayala wanted to say something.
So for middle schools, it'd be Shamawa, Sierra, and Uni to an extent.
Okay. And then the high schools, do you know?
In high schools, we've got, let me look into that, please, and I will get back to you on that.
I'm just curious if there was any correlation between maybe some of the schools that have higher instances of suspension rates and then targeting those schools first, if we did that or not. Or if the ones that are coming online, maybe we're targeting those ones.
So when we look at the levels of restorative practices, as we were saying, they're very similar to the levels in the multi-tiered system of support. So level 1 is universal to all students, being led by classroom teachers and focusing on community building circles. With level 2 focusing or being led by administrators, counselors, and teachers, and those are restorative circles that really focus on responding to infractions and providing strategies that help participants repair harm. And then level 3 are led by restorative practices certified staff and really is looking at how we support students upon re-entry into school after suspension. Looking ahead, we're continuing to add tools and resources to support all students across the system, building on the success of restorative practices, but also looking forward, establishing positive behavior interventions and supports for our school sites. These are programs or policies that specifically instruct behavior, such as how do we go to the library, what are the expected behaviors. We review that in the class and practice that throughout. And looking at strengthening adult and student capacity on the social emotional competencies, which we'll touch on later when we get to engagement. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Angulo to share more on civic engagement.
Good evening. So civic engagement has gained a lot of attention this past 15 years, especially recently. Federal, state, and county institutions are working to improve student engagement. RUSD is in a strong position to align ourselves with this. The work we've done the past 2 years has set the stage for RUSD to move forward with providing students with quality civic learnings and opportunities to engage in the civic realm. We will be developing the RUSD Civic Engagement Plan with a priority for all students to leave RUSD world ready, responsible, and productive citizens. This will be a TK-12 plan with character education being the main vehicle in the lower grades. Character education helps establish the skills and dispositions necessary to use in the civic realm, and as we develop the character education plan for our RUSD, we're going to work with aligning to the work schools are already doing through social and emotional learning, especially at the elementary levels, and we'll be establishing a baseline of current character ed programs and help support schools that need to develop one. One example of a character ed program that's in use is like character counts. The schools that use it build a positive school climate around certain qualities or characters such as trustworthiness or respect, and they embed that into their school culture. In October of 2017, Governor Brown signed AB 24, which authorizes the development of a criteria to award the state seal of civic engagement to deserving high school seniors. One of the SSC...
Dr. Angulo, Trustee Locke-Dawson has a question.
Okay. One of the SSCE foundational research documents is the Guardian of Democracy, Civic Mission of Schools. It lays out 6 proven practices that help students achieve this or become world-ready and responsible and productive citizens. And this potentially could go into effect. The plan is the state plans to have it go into effect for the graduating class of 2021.
I would love to see that, Guardians. I don't know that we've had a chance to look at that in academic oversight, right?
We did not look at
Okay. Is this something that we were going to be reviewing at the committee? And
the 6 proven practices, we can certainly bring that back. It's a document that was used to help form the draft by the state.
Yeah, I would just like to see it. And I know one of the things we discussed in academic oversight was the potential for us to work with our partners in the community on real world issues and getting our students to be able to tackle some sort of intractable social issues together with different partners. So is that going to go in there, I'm hoping, at some point?
Yes, that will be part of our plan that we're working on, which we are developing now, and we'll have stakeholder input. And there is some pieces in upcoming slides which we'll talk about our work with UCR and how we can engage more partners.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. So the state seal of civic engagement has, the draft criteria has been set, and this is just a summary of what that looks like. It's students should be in good academic standing, demonstrate a competent understanding of democracy, participate in informed civic engagement, have a written or oral reflection, and exhibit character traits that support civic mindedness. And this is, as I said, a summary of what the state has put out, but does leave a lot to local discretion on how we can define those pieces. As I mentioned, we have a partnership with UCR, which is one of the areas we've been working on civic engagement, and this through the Civic Engagement Research Group at UCR for the past 3 years. There's been surveys of students, teachers, but we've learned about RUSD's civic learning landscapes from students and teachers through those interviews and surveys. We intend to use that data to help inform our civic engagement plan. The findings will help us make decisions around how to systematically provide all students with more opportunities and support teachers in their direct work with students. So part of that plan will to put the systems in place. Last year we had 15 teachers volunteer to incorporate some key learning, civic learning projects into their curriculum. Their students highlighted the work that they did throughout the year in a RUSD Civic Showcase, which the first one was held last year. The event was held May 22nd. And we had approximately 100 students from 5 different schools that went to Riverside City Hall to present their projects to the parents, teachers, administrators, board members, city officials. And while there was a variety of civic learning demonstrated, the most touching was the soapbox speeches made by Lincoln High School students. One student, Kale, he bravely spoke out against gang violence, and he chose that topic long before the Civic Showcase. But that week in May was particularly hard for him. Kale was telling the story about how his cousin had just been killed in a gang-related shooting. But instead of despair, he was giving solutions. He made comments like, to all of us make our neighborhoods stay safe. To parents, encourage your kids to stay in school. To teachers in schools, make sure your students feel supported. And this was in front of probably 100 people as they were given their soapbox speeches. So Kale said what we needed to hear. He and other students gave powerful testaments to the importance of connections we make with students on a daily basis. And we will be holding another Civic Showcase this year on May 6th, and we will send an invitation out to you as soon as we have the location solidified. So I will turn it back over to Kirsten.
Thank you. Our last action in this priority area this evening is engagement, and our target is to increase the overall percentage of students enrolled in grades 5 through 12 who feel engaged in their school by 2%. So later this month, our students will be taking the Gallup survey, which is how we measure this indicator. We are working to increase the engagement of students by providing more opportunities for student voice and leadership through Superintendent's Council or Superintendent Student Advisory, our student board members, our student board representatives, as well as student participation on many of our district committees that we have, including Homework Policy and our Equity Committee. We are identifying and cultivating student strengths through our Learning Together Strengths Academy, which is now at 19 of our school sites. Strengths Academy is a program that helps students to identify and share their strengths and also to recognize the talents in their peers and build positive peer relationships as well. In addition, we are continuing to encourage participation by all of our students in our Schools +2 extracurricular and co-curricular activities in addition to their academic pursuits. We are very excited looking ahead to really begin to strengthen our use of social emotional learning as a part of our effective first instruction across the district. This will really help to build positive relationships and also to help students work effectively and ethically with each other. There are 5 competencies, beginning with self-management, which is managing emotions and behaviors to achieve one's goals. Looking at self-awareness, which is recognizing one's emotional values as well as their strengths and challenges. Responsible decision-making, which is making ethical, constructive choices about personal and social behavior. Looking at relationship skills, forming positive relationships, working in teams, and dealing effectively with conflict resolution.
Kirsten, Trustee Luck-Dawson.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. So you say these are social emotional competencies. How they're all fabulous ideas, but a lot of this kind of stuff is fabulous ideas. So how are we getting this into our kids in a meaningful way where we can actually assess how it's taking hold? And I mean, you know, these are very large, grandiose kind of ideas. So make me feel more comfortable about that.
So we are at our very beginning stages. This is something new for us that we're just beginning. So we are really focusing right now on strengthening the adult competencies and capacity through providing professional development to all of our staff across educational services that provide professional learning to our teachers so that we can embed these with the content that we're already providing in the instructional practices. So it is not a something where teachers will stop and teach for 20 minutes a day social emotional competencies. It is embedded and part of the instructional program using the materials that we have through engagement as well. As far as measuring that, we are right now gathering stakeholders to look at it's what's called universal screeners. So there are tools out there that will measure a student's aptitude with social emotional competencies and allow us to build some early warning systems for students that may have some strengths in self-management but areas of need in social awareness.
And we have 34 social emotional counselors, I think, on staff, maybe more. How many more do we have than that? 39 now. So they're going to be the ones that are going to be doing.
It will actually be, this is part of our Tier 1 universal for all
Okay.
students. So it will go
No,
out
but
to,
back to the universal screening.
yes, getting all the way to classrooms first. Students who may need additional supports, then we can utilize our SAP counselors, our school counselors, and other staff that we have to provide those additional supports.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
I think actually that was pretty much the end.
So I think to your question, part of it, Mrs. Lock-Dawson, is the specifics. So when we talked about the training, as I think Mr. Lee, you answered, so the high schools are King and Ramona, are the two schools in front, but a lot of what we're talking about tonight has to be explicitly taught, and it has to be trained, and it has to be worked through with staffs, and it's something that is always developing and always growing. So when you talk about how to deal with students in the classroom and providing those skills, we have resources that we'll be able to bring in. Schools that have been out in front and have been trained and working with those teams are finding ways to build that pyramid for students that need additional support. And we're leveraging the staff that we do have because we are very fortunate to have a lot of support that other districts around us don't have. So we'll continue to develop that and bring that back. So in conclusion,
Dr. Lewis,
yes, sir.
Trustee Lee would like, okay.
So this is just our quick wrap up. So we started with, remember there are 5 district priorities. This is one of the 5. And within, when we talk about civics and we talk about character education and being citizenship centered, it starts TK, but again, walking through that porch of a graduate to leaving as a senior. What does that look like? We want students that have the behavior that is appropriate and successful. And if they don't, that has to be taught. And we know that takes time, and it takes a lot of time from teachers, so giving teachers that support. Academics, what does it look like from instruction? How are we assessing that to make sure our students are leaving with the standards that they need to have every option open to them when they leave as a senior? And then last, the social emotional part. We know how important that is today more than ever. So how are we giving teachers tools and providing additional support for students who do need additional time or additional support to be successful in our environment? That summarizes what we call multi-tier systems of support. So you'll continue to hear a lot more as we develop through the coming months and in the planning stages. But that does summarize. The last thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned is with each of our actions, remember we have work plans. So we have leads in the audience who are working diligently across the system. With every board priority, we have actions. With every actions, we have action steps to make sure we are meeting those goals and metrics. So there are multiple layers that are leading us to these goals. And I want to thank the staff that is here for the work they are doing to continue to monitor those work plans going forward. Those are on a weekly and monthly basis to make sure we are meeting our goals moving forward. So that wraps up our presentation for the evening.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Trustee Lee?
Thank you, Dr. Farouk, and thank you, Dr. Lewis, and everybody for presenting. I just want to go back to the beginning of the presentation. I was looking at this data and been looking at it since we got our agenda, and I realized the big difference is just counting the out of school suspensions and the in school suspensions, and that we did make progress for our out of school suspensions from 17-18 to 18-19, which is great news. So I did have a couple questions though. So I'm assuming the staff came up with reducing suspension rates for all students by 0.4%. So I was on my calculator here. I think that equates to about like 173 suspensions, roughly, right? So how do we come up with that number? How do we come up with 0.4?
So I will begin to answer that, but Dr. Perez, if there's assistance, please jump in. So when you go back to the dashboard and we look at making progress on the dashboard, to move over and show growth as a district, the dashboard told us we had to decrease by 0.4% based on the state metric. That's where that indicator came from, in collaboration with Dr. Perez, Dr. Sosa, and Dr. Yoho setting targets.
That's pretty much the overview. But looking at, so again, keep in mind that these are estimated and internal.
Right.
Looking at that small percentage would also correlate to movement on the dashboard for it to be realistic and tangible for school sites to grapple with that as a school, as well as being able to get movement on the actual dashboard.
Okay, so it wouldn't necessarily put us in another color, but maybe getting closer to where we want to be.
Given that this is estimated and internal, I would come back to you with more of a hard response.
Oh, okay. But I'm still, okay, then I'm not quite clear then. So the 0.4, based upon your staff or your team's forecasting, that would get us to the next quadrant, or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's different than getting a different color.
It would move us over. The intent, so if we recall back, many presentations ago, looking at the dashboard, the ideal over time, over about 3 more years, is to get to green.
Right.
It would at least move quadrant over for a district. And keep in mind that schools are also operating on the same pretty much premise that they need to see growth. Even if they're in a lower band, for example, in orange, it's harder to go all the way to green, so
Right.
at least they can move to the next quadrant.
Okay,
That
so
makes
then
sense.
is the target for this coming year also 0.4?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my other question had to do with the estimated suspension rate slide. So just looking at that discrepancy between our white students or even our Hispanic students, and then compared to our African American students or our foster students. So it's almost double. And so I know that we have some systems and some plans in place. Do we believe that this gap is going to continue to close with that work? Do we have targets in terms of closing gaps between different groups of students?
So what Dr. Lewis also alluded to is the work plan. So for example, one of our staff and Mr. Ayala is running point on that with suspension rate, is looking at overall, there's this ultimate lagging indicator, but also the leading indicator, so little progress checks that are moving forward. A part of it is some of our internal policies and practices. A part of it is what are the resources that we're supporting schools with. A piece, and this is also connecting to one of our equity actions, is looking at what are the positive behavior components that are in places at schools with regard to restorative practices. And part of the work plan this year is very much so to the question of do we see a correlation between PBIS or positive behavior intervention system and restorative practices, and can we make correlation to suspension rates or any other behavior attendance issues? That really is the work that's happening this year through that work plan. So over the course of this entire year and monthly, looking at little progress checks.
Okay. Yes, that was going to be my other question, but you answered it. So we're hoping that looking at the suspension rates of the schools that currently are practicing these practices, we should be able to see we would expect to see more movement in those schools than maybe other schools.
Possibly, and also being able to get more of the formative data out in front of the principals and their leadership teams, so they can look at it by student and really do a deeper analysis, because that's really where you're going to see the change, so we can support the school sites in really exploring what's the undercurrent happening there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Lee, just one point of clarity. The 0.4 that we talked about, if anything does happen within the state, as we look at in school and now out of school, if that does change, we will be first to bring that back to the board to update you.
Okay.
We're not sure what the state's going to do.
Trustee Lockhausen.
Thank you. This is kind of a wonky data thing, but I mentioned this last time. So our student groups are vary widely in the absolute number that are there. So, 20% of a group of kids that's 5 in total is a lot different than 20% of a group that's 500 in total, right? So this is a little bit like comparing apples to oranges. Is this what the state asks us to do, or is this our own, and is there a way we can standardize the groups so that you actually are getting not an absolute measure of the absolute percentage within the group, but actually a comparison across? Do you understand my question?
I think, let me take a
Dr.
run at
Prince,
this.
maybe.
And, I mean, because the state did form this, Trustee Lock-Dawson, on what constitutes a subgroup. And I believe the old rules, it used to be if it was 100 or more, and they've really made it a lot smaller to believe it's 30 or more is a subgroup. And so where you see some, well, just pick one, Filipino, we don't have the N there, but if there's more than 30 Filipino kids, then they're going to be a subgroup. Where in the old rule, it wasn't that way because it had the threshold was 100. Is that number correct, Dr. Sosa? So that's why these subgroups are set by the state, and these are all the subgroups we report on as a district to the state. But you're exactly right. The N is completely different. Our largest subgroup is our Latino subgroup, and it's 65% of our district. And then you have, Pacific Islanders or Filipino. It's very, very small. But
They're going to be very sensitive, right? The smaller groups are going to be very sensitive to change. So it's not a really accurate kind of measure of what we're doing. So I guess I would ask, maybe Dr. Perez, you're chomping at the bit over there, I think.
Not necessarily.
No.
But I did want to point out, and link it back to our equity work, is we still have to address the disproportionality. So even though our foster and homeless end value, our number of students is very low, that is a very sensitive and focused group for us to deliberately apply interventions to make sure that we can get them out of it because of some of the circumstances around that. Given with our Latino and Latinx students, they represent a larger number, and so maybe our strategy is going to look different, and that goes back to what Kirsten was sharing around MTSS. So what can we do to address that gap on a first-tier level? But statistically, I wouldn't be able to respond to that, just given the scope of it.
Well, you understand my question, though, right? But
I do, and Dr. Sosa and I have grappled with that, with not being able to find a clean answer.
It's an issue. All right, thank you.
Trustee Hunt? Or Dr. Hanson, did you want to add something? Okay. Trustee Hunt. Trustee Hunt, please.
So, Dr. Lewis, what would it look like, or Dr. Perez, and would I be anything out of the ordinary? Would I be startled if I asked you to put these groups at their campuses? They're all following the same rules, each campus, as far as it comes to this. So would it show me that there's one campus or two campuses that are lower and higher, or what would that look like? Have you examined that, whether John F. Kennedy High School is suspending more than others, or what? I'd be interested in that to see.
So that's something our team has looked at, again, continuing with Mr. Walker, now Ms. Frausto, and also Raul Ayala, working with our schools on our work plans. And as we go back, identifying the data points that we know we have to go back and support, and then have those schools engage with us on that cycle of inquiry that we've talked about. There may be a valid reason that on that campus something occurred that in dealing with students, they may have a very rational reason as to why their numbers might be higher, and our sites know our students very, very well. Yeah. But I think what we're doing is identifying the need and then working with them to come up with the plans to address their student needs.
And I'm not suggesting to condemn someone that's got a high versus someone that's got a low. Maybe someone that's got a low isn't doing their job. But I would be very interested to see what our different high schools and middle schools in particular, how these numbers break out. I just want to dig deeper into it and try to understand that.
We'll be happy to do that.
Dr. Lewis, what is the plan for time frame-wise to expanding some of those programs to the other schools?
In regard to character education?
Correct, yes.
So currently, Mrs. Power is working with all of our schools to figure out, first identify through our elementary principals of what we are offering and what the narrative or formative story is of what is being successful, and then sharing with our principals and find ways to support that. So that plan is being created. That is the goal of our civics plan. So hopefully by the spring, we'll have all that data identified. We'll be able to work with our principals and identify what they would best like to move forward in the next academic year.
Thank you. Thank you to all the team. And I know Joseph's there in the audience from UCR, and we appreciated the grant and the partnership there. And Daniela has moved on to Kentucky, I think. but we're appreciative of her and Carolyn Power. Thank you on staff as well for all of your efforts. So we now come to item N2, which is an item requested by a member of the public to be placed on our agenda pursuant to Education Code Section 35145.5. The agenda item states what constitutes a formal, meaningful legal opinion. This is a discussion-only item. No board action is requested. We have one speaker request from Ms. Letitia Pepper. Welcome, Ms. Pepper. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I asked that this be placed on the agenda because the newspaper article where one of the bond oversight committee members said you guys are actually violating the bond, you're committing a bond fraud. The school district got quotes in there saying, oh no, we're not, because we have 2 independent legal opinions that this is not a violation of what we can do with Measure O. And in fact, you don't have 2 independent legal opinions. You got legal opinions, quote unquote, from the bond counsel, the attorney who helped create and sell these bonds, and from another attorney who also worked for the same law firm while that was going on, but then left. Not exactly 2 independent legal opinions, but they're not actually valid legal opinions. Because for the school district to have a valid legal opinion, the school district should have asked for a legal opinion from a law firm and gotten a letter back from the law firm addressed to the school board. What happened was, when the bond oversight committee member submitted a letter, Mrs. Kakish, one of the crooks here, sent a letter to bond counsel saying, oh, you know, hey, look what this guy is saying, say something, right? So she gets a letter emailed to her, basically to her, not to the board, saying, oh, this is fine. And it was a bullshit letter. I'm an attorney, I've been an attorney longer than he has, and it was bullshit. And then they give it to the bond oversight committee to say, see, we're not doing anything wrong. Well, the school board didn't ask for that opinion, so you guys didn't get a legal opinion. The other problem is bond counsel cannot lawfully, I shouldn't take that, he can't ethically give you that kind of opinion because bond counsel has duties to other people like the bondholders, not just to you guys. So it'll be interesting to see if his law firm wants to go out on a limb subject to their liability insurance and give you guys an actual valid legal opinion addressed to you that you have asked for. Let's see if that happens. Thanks.
Thank you. We will now have Mr. Chris Keeler address the board.
Dr. Farouk, Dr. Hansen, members of the Board of Trustees, I'm Chris Keeler. I am one of the attorneys that serves this district. I would just respond briefly to what Ms. Pepper said. Attorneys work for the school district. When they serve, represent the school district, they work for the Board of Education, which does essentially embody this district. But we normally work through district administration, who report to you. It is very common for legal opinions to be given to the district through district administration. So that is just a very common thing. It's also important to note that legal advice is given through a number of different means. It can be given orally through teleconferences or in meetings. It can also be given in writing via an email or a memorandum or a formal letter of opinion. And the formal letter of opinion may be signed and scanned and sent to you, or it may have a wet signature, as we say, and be sent to you via mail. It may be directed to the superintendent or an assistant superintendent, or it can be sent to the board itself. I think an important thing to note is, when can your attorney be held accountable for the advice that they give you? I think that is the main question, and I will tell you, our firm is covered by malpractice insurance. We pay a lot of money for that every year to be protected and to protect our clients in case we were to ever make a mistake. Now, hopefully we will never have to call upon that, but if we do, we are covered for the legal services that we provide, and those legal services are not limited to a formal wet ink written opinion. our legal services, whether it's oral advice in a meeting, whether it's an email, whether it's a memorandum of opinion or a formal legal opinion, all of those are covered. We stand behind that advice, and our malpractice insurer stands behind that advice. So there are very few situations under the law where a formal legal opinion must be written, and in fact, most are not even statutory requirements. They're usually the requirements of third-party financiers. For example, an opinion for a lease purchase agreement, an opinion of counsel, and of course, Ms. Pepper referred to disclosure counsel or bond counsel. Those are always formal written opinions, but there are no constraints or requirements that all legal opinions be rendered only to the governing board and that they all be formal written opinions. That's simply not the way the world works.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keeler. Now we will see if any members of the board have comments. Trustee Hunt.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Mr. Keeler. Oh, you disappeared on me there.
I thought we were done.
I thought you'd been raptured or something there. I didn't know.
It's late.
Ms. Pepper made an interesting observation. I'm not debating it or condoning it, whatever, but that the board didn't officially ask for a legal opinion. Is there, under your advice, is there a formula or a process we should go through as a board in asking for a legal opinion, or is it customary and fine to rely on our executive staff, our superintendent, a member of the governance team? I'm not debating. I'm just asking your guidance on that. Just interesting question.
So the district actually has a board policy, I believe, on the use of legal counsel, and a request can be made through the board formally or through the superintendent or someone designated by the superintendent. So it's set up that way. It's a CSBA model policy, and almost every school district in the state follows it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that clarity.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Thank you, Mr. Keeler. We will now move on to agenda item 0.1, agenda items for future meetings. We have a public speaking request from Ms. Letitia Pepper. Welcome, Ms. Pepper. You have 3 minutes.
I don't think it'll take 3 minutes. I would suggest that the board, this board, actually officially requests this gentleman's law firm to give them a formal opinion on whether or not your use of the Measure O funds is lawful or not. Thank you.
Does any board members have any agenda items for future meetings? Okay.
Sorry, Dr. Farouk, I do.
Trustee Lock-Dawson?
I just wanted to ask Ms. Carmen Day when we're going to be getting an update on the wellness centers and wellness initiative.
At our next board study session.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now adjourn tonight's meeting in the memory of Sophia Varela, who is a third grade student at Washington Elementary School, Sheldon Anderson, who worked in RUSD for 20 years before his retirement, and Thomas Schultz, who was a longtime teacher in RUSD. Meeting is adjourned at 9:09 p.m.